Chapter 561. Yandame-sama, I'm really sorry that we have to meet for such a reason. When I first came to Woodleaf, because I was too tired, I had to ask you to forgive me for resting for so many days. The Land of Fire daimyo sat in his seat and looked at Watergate, who was sitting opposite him with a slightly apologetic look. In fact, the Land of Fire daimyo's heart was also a little nervous. After all, when he recalled his attitude when he first came to Woodleaf, he felt that if someone treated him like that, he would have a grudge in his heart. After all, it wasn't Watergate's fault that he was attacked, but when he came to Woodleaf to seek protection from Watergate. Watergate also directly greeted him with a large group of powerful ninjas, and in a hurry, he also prepared a courtyard that was worthy of his identity as a place to rest. Watergate has done a good job, but his attitude toward Watergate is indeed a little too arrogant. As the leader of the most powerful military organization in the country, Watergate's status is the same as his, and he doesn't have to cater to his responsibilities. In order to relieve the anxiety in his heart, and also to let Minato do his best to protect him in the future, the daimyo of the Fire Country actually lowered himself very much. This could be heard from the daimyo's words just now. Watergate has been a Hokage for so many years, so he is naturally very clear about these psychological changes. Although the Land of Fire daimyo at this moment is very humble, but that's just because the Land of Fire daimyo succumbed to the fear in his heart. It's not something that can be relied on. Watergate also very humbly said to the Land of Fire daimyo, "Your Majesty doesn't have to worry about it, this is human nature." As the Land of Fire daimyo, you naturally don't often encounter such frightening things. And your experience from your palace all the way to Woodleaf Village, I also know a little about it from your guard leader. Woodleaf Village is also a part of the Land of Fire. As a member of the many people of the Land of Fire, naturally, we have to step forward for the sake of the Land of Fire. Protecting the Land of Fire daimyo is also the responsibility and obligation of our Woodleaf Village. The Land of Fire daimyo quietly listened to Watergate's words, although Watergate's words are quite political, but as the head of the political system of the Land of Fire, this way of speaking is the most acceptable to the daimyo. The daimyo's face showed a somewhat gratified smile. Apparently he understood the meaning of Watergate's words. The daimyo didn't continue this topic with Watergate, because just now Watergate's words was actually a promise to himself. Protecting his safety is Watergate's task. As two smart people, in fact, they don't need to speak so clearly between each other. A little bit of pointers is enough for them to understand each other. Hokage-sama, I have read the battle plan you submitted to me before more than once or twice during this time, although I dare not say that I fully understand what kind of position Hokage-sama is going to put Woodleaf Village in this shinobi world war, and what kind of benefits you want the Land of Fire to obtain from it. But I think I have already found 3 of them. All the plans are very good, rigorous and operable. But I still feel that it's a little insufficient. In the shinobi world, the military and political affairs of a country are actually separated. The daimyo is responsible for government affairs, and the village leader is responsible for military affairs. Under normal circumstances, unless there was a request from one of the parties, there would be no overstepping their boundaries. But at this moment, the daimyo of the Land of Fire obviously broke such a rule, and began to express his opinion on the military planning of Woodleaf Village. Hearing the daimyo's words, Watergate's eyes also vaguely showed a bit of interest. Although Watergate tried to hide the interest in his eyes, the daimyo of the Land of Fire still caught the slightly disrespectful interest in Watergate's eyes from Watergate's eyes and expression. If other people dared to do such a disrespectful behavior to him, the daimyo of the Land of Fire will definitely flip the table and leave on the spot, and if this person's status is not high enough, he may directly kill this guy. But at this moment, the person sitting opposite him, to put it nicely, is the person he is asking for protection, and to put it bluntly, if this person really has any disloyalty, with a little effort, he can directly change the position of the daimyo. This is the shinobi world, this is a big country. Even if your status is high, once a powerful person wants to make a move on you, they can find enough loopholes to deal with you. Resisting the discomfort in his heart, the daimyo then said to Watergate, "In this plan, in the last appendix, the benefits that can be obtained after the victory of the war are mentioned. Some of them are naturally very exciting, such as the long-term peace of the shinobi world, and the equal trade between the 5 major countries. But I still feel that there is something missing, and that is the punishment for the Rain country. I don't want our shinobi to fight a hard battle, and shed their blood for something that sounds good but is very empty. You don't want the shinobi to get nothing? You don't want yourself, you don't want your country to get nothing, right? Looking at the impassioned words of the daimyo of the Land of Fire, he directly put himself in the position of all shinobi. But at this moment, the greed in the eyes of the daimyo of the Land of Fire was so obvious, so undisguised. Of course, the daimyo is looking forward to victory, of course, he is looking forward to the Land of Fire being the leader of the 5 major countries. But now, what the daimyo needs more is a vigorous battle, a good enough result, and a great achievement that is enough to leave his name in history. With excitement in his eyes, the daimyo clenched his fists and looked at Watergate with eagerness. In fact, such post-war negotiations have never been the responsibility of the ninja village as an armed organization, but the Land of Fire sent its own political talents and negotiators to reach this agreement. But due to the dual system of the country, the daimyo of the Land of Fire had to ask for the opinion of Watergate. And Watergate, as the supreme leader of the country's armed forces, is naturally the gardener who personally cultivated such an extraordinary result. The Land of Rain? Obviously, in the words of the daimyo of the Land of Fire just now, he emphasized the 3 words of the Land of Rain. Watergate can feel the almost fanatical pursuit in the eyes of the daimyo when he said these 3 words. Of course, the sharp-minded Watergate also understood the mind of the daimyo of the Land of Fire. Is it really the temptation that every person in a high position can't resist? Chapter 562. In the Akatsuki's base, Black Zetsu was standing in front of the huge Gedo Mazo in a daze. He casually glanced at the thick vines extending from the Gedo Mazo's body. On these vines, there was a slightly shriveled flower bud that was used to nurture White Zetsu's clone. Just as Black Zetsu was casually glancing at the flower bud, suddenly, the originally shriveled and yellow flower bud was no longer shriveled and yellow, and even the shriveled state began to slowly fill up. Under the slightly dim light, one could vaguely see the human figure inside. Seeing that the originally shriveled flower bud was filled up again, Black Zetsu slowly walked to the foot of the Gedo Mazo and pressed his hand on the body of the Gedo Mazo. Chakra was transmitted from Black Zetsu's body to the Gedo Mazo, and the Gedo Mazo directly transmitted the chakra to the Gedo Mazo. After a while, under the unrestrained supply of chakra from Black Zetsu, the Gedo Mazo directly became mature. The petals of the Gedo Mazo opened, and a naked White Zetsu's clone jumped out of the Gedo Mazo. As if he didn't feel anything strange about being naked, this White Zetsu directly walked to the front of Black Zetsu and directly knelt down. Greetings, Jetsu-sama. Black Zetsu didn't know whether this White Zetsu's clone was paying respect to the main body of White Zetsu or Black Zetsu. Anyway, Black Zetsu looked at the half-kneeling White Zetsu's clone and said coldly, "What's the situation?" When the White Zetsu's clone heard Black Zetsu's question, he lowered his head even more because he wanted to appear more respectful. Reporting to Jetsu-sama, during this period of time, I and the other 4 White Zetsu's clone have been attacking the daimyo of the 5 major countries day and night. The daimyo of the Land of Fire that I am responsible for has reached the Woodleaf village at this moment, and the other daimyo of several countries seem to be about to be unable to support the ninja villages of their countries. In order to ensure that their own country's Kage would not be attacked by us in the coming war, they would definitely gather all of them together. And because of our unconventional actions this time, the ninjas of the 5 major countries will definitely be excited, and in the following battle, they will definitely be more united to buy time for us. Although White Zetsu's doppelganger had only said a few short sentences, it had revealed all of Black Zetsu's plans. Obviously, such continuous attacks on the daimyo of the 5 major countries were not arranged by Uchiha Obito, but by Black Zetsu's own decision. White Zu's clone was also very loyal to Black Zu. He obeyed Black Zu's orders. Just as Watergate thought before, the purpose of Black Zetsu doing this is to make the ninjas of the 5 major countries more united against a common enemy. After all, even if they look down on the daimyo of their country, once the daimyo of their country has an accident, it is no different from directly slapping the face of the ninjas of each country. No ninja would allow such a thing to happen. At this moment, what Black Zetsu was looking forward to was not the so-called victory at all. What Black Zetsu needed at this moment was the most abundant and most tense time. Black Zetsu glanced at White Zetsu's doppelganger, who was half kneeling in front of him, and slowly put his hand on the head of White Zetsu's doppelganger. Chakra continued to pour into the head of White Zetsu's doppelganger. White Zetsu's doppelganger, who was still quite intelligent, at this moment, his eyes became dull almost in an instant. White Zetsu's doppelganger is just a consumable for Black Zetsu. The reason why he chose this doppelganger of White Zetsu's doppelganger to carry out his plan is only because this doppelganger has the strength of an elite jonin after being transformed by Kabuto Yakushi. Now that his task has been completed, he can no longer keep the consciousness that he has deliberately cultivated. Recently, Black Zetsu can clearly feel that because of some of his previous actions, whether intentional or unintentional, Uchiha Obito has become vigilant against him. At this moment, Kabuto, who wanted to prove his worth through all kinds of things, was staring at him like a mad dog. Although he wasn't afraid of Kabuto and Uchiha Obito joining hands, in such a critical period, it was better to have less trouble than more trouble. As for the remaining 4 White Zetsu's doppelganger, once they force all the daimyo of the 5 major countries to the ninja villages of his country, Black Zetsu will also make a move on them and erase all their intelligence. Anyway, in the army of 100,000 White Zetsu, only 5 White Zetsu's doppelganger are a little abnormal. It is not easy to attract attention. Black Zetsu's doppelganger, who was half kneeling in front of him, waved his hand gently, and with a slightly dull expression, directly merged into the soil under Black Zetsu's control to join the rest of the White Zetsu's army. Black Zetsu looked at the Geto Mazo standing in front of him, and his eyes slightly drifted. Mother-sama. Soon, you will be able to resurrect from a long sleep. Uchiha Obito, Uchiha Madara. Humph, they are just chess pieces in my hands. Black Zetsu's eyes were full of indifference and coldness at this moment. It seems that in order to achieve his goal, Black Zetsu can do anything. From the ancient times to the present, Black Zetsu has been like this step by step. He slowly turned from immaturity to maturity, and from maturity to wily and astute. Even now, such a war that swept the entire shinobi world is nothing more than a game of chess for Black Zetsu. People in the world think that they can control their own destiny. They are constantly fighting, some people succeed and are regarded as heroes, some people fail and are regarded as devils. But these so-called successes and failures all came from the secret manipulation of one person. This person is Black Zetsu. Wandering in the torrent of history, he became the powerful support behind every hero, and the whisper of every devil in the ears of every devil king. A pair of hands, holding both black and white. All the creatures in the world are just playthings in his hands. And Black Zetsu has only one purpose, and that is to bring his mother back to this world. Chapter 563. Black Zetsu's secret plan was gradually completed with the passage of time. As the daimyo of the 5 major countries, no one was reckless. When the kage of the 5 major ninja villages noticed that the Akatsuki had begun to move against the kage of their country, they also came up with a plan together. That is, gather all the daimyo of the 5 major countries in a secret place, and then send elite ninjas to protect the political leaders of these 5 countries. After all, now is the edge of the outbreak of war. The combat power of every ninja village is precious. In order to protect the daimyo of their country, they must send one or even several ninjas who are strong enough to protect the daimyo, in addition to occupying a lot of ordinary ninja resources. In order to ensure the smooth progress of the war, the kage of the 5 major ninja villages finally found a very secret place after a discussion, and sent an appropriate amount of ninjas to protect the daimyo of their country. After experiencing such a thing, almost every ninja in the shinobi village was quite excited. So although a part of the combat power was occupied for no reason, it was not a loss. Let's put all the actions of the 5 major countries and the internal actions of the Akatsuki aside. The 2 people who played an important role in this war, the Nine Tails Column Force, Uzumaki Naruto, and the Hachibi Column Force, Killer Bee, also came to a secret place in the Land of Lightning. This place is the place where the 4th Raikage AI said can let Naruto master the power of the 9 tails in his body. Yo, we came to this place, this is the place to get power. As long as you can complete the training, you can become super strong. Oh yeah, Killer Bee looked at the familiar scene in front of him and said to Naruto, who was standing next to him, in his own strange tone. Although Killer Bee's way of speaking was very strange, Naruto gradually began to adapt to Killer Bee's way of speaking after getting along with him along the way. After all, although Killer Bee looks very wild and unruly, in fact, he is a very easy person to get along with. How could Naruto reject such a person in his heart? Instead of talking to Killer Bee, Naruto turned his head and began to carefully observe the place where he could master the power of 9 tails. This place looked more like an altar with a long history. Many broken stone pillars and some broken sculptures were silently telling Killer Bee and Whirlpool Naruto about the long history of this place. There were also many places in the ruins that had some totems and murals that people couldn't understand. Naruto couldn't help but lift his feet and walk around the ruins. Finally, a relatively complete mural appeared in front of Naruto. The mural looked a little abstract, but for some reason, Naruto unexpectedly understood the meaning of the mural. It was a very tall and unusual figure. This figure was outlined with black paint, and in the hand of the figure was a circular staff. Around the figure were circles of light and shadow outlined with gold and white, making people feel that this person didn't seem to belong to this world. On the contrary, it was more like a feeling of transcendence. Of course, what attracted Naruto's attention the most was the black figure's eyes, which were painted with white and purple ripples at the same time. Naruto recognized this pair of eyes, because this pair of eyes was the eyes of the person who made Naruto face his weakness. Sage of the 6 Paths, Naruto's mouth couldn't help but murmur the name of this legendary figure. This pair of eyes were the eyes of the leader of Akatsuki, Pain, who destroyed almost the entire village of Konoha with his own strength, and brought the biggest disaster to Konoha since the establishment of the village, the legendary eyes of Immortal, Rinnegan. Naruto didn't know if it was his own illusion or something else, but he always felt that the eyes of the Sage of the 6 Paths in this mural were not as empty as in the painting. Instead, he felt like he was being stared at by this person. This feeling didn't make Naruto feel strange or uncomfortable. On the contrary, it was very peaceful, as if he had met a very close person. This kind of intimacy from the heart couldn't be faked. Yo 9 Tails boy, what are you doing? Our situation is very urgent. Master your power, and we will go to the battlefield. Oh yeah, Killer Bee, the Hachibi Column Force, saw that Naruto was in a daze, so he walked to the side of Naruto and put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. He wanted to remind Naruto that they didn't have enough time. Naruto was patted by Killer Bee, and his whole body trembled involuntarily, like a person who fell into a half-awake state. After Naruto's body trembled, he also recovered from the shock. He looked at the wall where the very clear mural he had been looking at just now, it turned into a wall made of stone bricks. As for the mural that Naruto felt very familiar just now, at this moment, it was completely gone. Although there were some doubts in his heart, Naruto knew that now was not the time for him to worry about this situation. Looking at Killer Bee standing opposite him, Naruto nodded and said to Killer Bee, "You're right. Let's go. You are right, the current ninja world needs our strength, now is not the time to worry about some trivial things. What are we going to do next?" Seeing that Naruto was serious, Killer Bee also began to explain to Naruto the role of this ruin. Because of their willingness to be sealed, in fact, most of the tailed beasts are very irritable. Few tailed beasts can recover their calm attitude and communicate effectively with column force. But to fully master the power of the tailed beast in his body, the most important thing is to get the approval of the tailed beast in his body. In this lookout, there is a small space attached to it. In this space, the spiritual power of the tailed beast will be independent and coexist with the ninja as column force. The two sides can fight and communicate. If they fight, then one side will completely occupy the spiritual power of the other side. If they communicate, then it is the first step to fully master the power of the tailed beast in their body. Hey Nine Tails boy, you have to lift the seal when you get the power. Enter this space, open your seal, meet the powerful Nine Tails, and become the strongest column force. Oh yeah, with that, Killer Bee stretched out his hand and pointed out the path leading to the small space for Naruto. It was a relief wall that looked quite complete. Chapter 564. Understanding Killer Bee's meaning, Naruto nodded to Killer Bee and slowly walked to the front of the relief sculpture. Although Killer Bee didn't say it very clearly, once it involves spiritual confrontation, it is definitely extremely dangerous. But in order to master the power of the tailed beast in his body, such a risk must be faced. Naruto put his thumb in his mouth and bit his thumb. The blood oozing from the thumb was directly wiped on his palm by Naruto. His hands quickly formed a seal, and a ninjutsu was quickly completed in Naruto's hand. Summoning Jutsu. Naruto pressed his hand on the ground, and with the infusion of chakra, a cloud of smoke also rose from the place where his palm was pressed. The smoke dissipated, and a toad that looked quite strange appeared in front of Naruto. The head and body of this toad were very normal, but its neck was extremely long. A 1-meter-long scroll appeared directly between the toad's head and body. Is this the child of Watergate? The toad saw Naruto's figure the moment it appeared. The conspicuous golden hair and blue eyes quickly let the scroll toad recognize Naruto's identity. Sorry to trouble you. Looking at the scroll toad, Naruto didn't say much and directly said to the toad. The scroll toad also looked at Naruto with a dignified look, but it still nodded to Naruto. The scroll toad was very clear that it was the key to open the seal of the 9 tails on Naruto's body. When Naruto summoned it, it knew that Naruto was ready. It turned its body, and the huge scroll unfolded almost instantly. The moment the scroll was opened, the runes engraved on the scroll seemed to have gained a life of their own as they kept surging. When the scroll was fully unfolded, all the runes engraved inside the scroll seemed to have lost their final control, and directly rushed out of the scroll one by one. When Naruto saw these runes rushing towards him, he also lifted his clothes, revealing the mysterious seal on his abdomen. When Naruto exposed his abdomen to the air, the runes seemed to have found their target and rushed towards the seal on Naruto's abdomen. When the runes came into contact with Naruto's abdomen, they immediately integrated into Naruto's body. The seal on Naruto's abdomen also began to slowly change as the runes integrated into it. Although the general shape did not change much, it was obvious that the seal was no longer as calm as before. When all the runes integrated into the black seal, a faint red light began to appear on the surface of the seal. This red light was full of a violent feeling. Even though it had a complete tacit understanding with the Hachibi, when it carefully sensed the seal on Naruto's abdomen, it could not help but feel that a wild beast was staring at it with its eyes full of bestiality. The sense of crisis that came from the depths of its soul made Killer Bee involuntarily use the Hachibi's chakra in its body to resist. When it did not use the Hachibi's chakra, although it could feel some pressure, it was still barely able to withstand it. But when it used the Hachibi's chakra in its body, the power that was originally instinctively releasing its aura seemed to have found its target at this moment. It began to release its powerful aura towards Killer Bee with hostility. This feeling. It's really that stinky fox. After sensing this aura, the Hachibi that had been sleeping in Column Force's body also woke up from its slumber. Soon, Hachibi also noticed that his Jinchuriki, Killer Bee, was under the pressure of Kyuubi's killing intent, so he hurriedly said to Killer Bee, "Kill him. Bee, withdraw my chakra. 9 Tails and I have always been in a competitive relationship. He doesn't accept me, and I don't accept him. Originally, he was only releasing his aura instinctively, but when you started to use my chakra, he could also feel my aura. Facing his old enemy, no matter what state he is in, he will definitely do his best to show his strength. Hearing the words of the Hachibi in his body, Killer Bee also immediately withdrew the chakra from his body. Sure enough, when Killer Bee completely converged the Bija chakra in his body, the pressure that was originally exerted on his body disappeared as if it had lost its target. Killer Bee finally had a chance to observe Naruto's state at the moment. When the chakra in his body was no longer tightly guarded by the seal on his body, the originally very violent Nine Tails chakra surged wildly in his body like a runaway horse. Naruto immediately began to use the method of controlling the chakra that his mother taught him. Relying on his huge chakra, he began to integrate his chakra into the Nine Tails chakra at all costs. Gradually, a little bit of the Nine Tails chakra began to be controlled by Naruto. Using this strand of Nine Tails chakra as a primer, Naruto began to slowly straighten out the violent chakra in his body. And because of the violent increase of the Nine Tails chakra in his body, Naruto's figure also became the same as when he mobilized the Nine Tails chakra. His blue pupils turned scarlet and his teeth became wild. But at this moment, Naruto's eyes were very clear. Obviously, he was not affected by the chakra in his body too much. Looking at Naruto's state at the moment, Killer Bee, who was originally not so confident in his heart, couldn't help but feel a little confident in his heart. After all, at this moment, Naruto did not enter the small space that suppressed the tailed beasts to a certain extent, but he could control the violent chakra in his body with his own ability. So once Naruto entered this small space, with the help of the space, Naruto still had a great chance to extract the power of the tailed beast in his body and control the Nine Tails chakra. Chapter 565. Ignoring Killer Bee's gaze, Naruto walked towards the relief sculpture in front of him step by step. At this moment, there was an uncontrollable desire in Naruto's heart for no reason. It was a desire for power, but also a desire for freedom. Naruto didn't know whether such an emotion came from his own heart, but such a desire was so hard to suppress. He slowly pressed his hand on the relief sculpture, and a strange power fluctuation emerged from the relief sculpture. The power fluctuation penetrated into Naruto's body the moment it was produced. Naruto felt that every cell in his body was resonating in a strange way under the influence of this power fluctuation. Naruto felt like he was suddenly drenched from head to toe with cold spring water during the dog days of summer. The strange sense of comfort, the sense of freedom from the shackles, made Naruto's whole body relax involuntarily. At the moment when Naruto involuntarily relaxed under the influence of the power fluctuation, a gravitational force suddenly appeared from the relief sculpture. After Naruto's relaxed body received this gravitational force, he immediately rushed in the direction of the relief sculpture. At this moment, the relief sculpture seemed to become illusory. Naruto's hand, which was originally pressed on it, slowly melted into it. After a while, Naruto's entire body had entered the relief sculpture. Seeing that Naruto had entered the relief sculpture, Killer Bee also nodded slowly and sat where he was originally standing. All he could do now was to patiently wait for the result of the game between Naruto and Nine Tails. He had already done everything he could to help Naruto on the way here. Now, all he had to rely on was Naruto's own ability and luck. When Naruto entered this small space, he had completely lost consciousness. Naruto's body slowly floated in the nothingness space, and the energy with the ancient breath also slowly rushed into Naruto's body. This energy with ancient aura rushed toward Naruto's head as soon as it entered his body. This aura was the same as the one that helped Sasuke release Koto Amatsukami after he was controlled by Koto Amatsukami. As the energy continued to gather towards Naruto's head, Naruto's spirit was finally completely immersed in his own spiritual space. This was a very familiar scene, a place that was quite like a sewer, exuding a cold and damp rotten smell. Naruto has been to this place more than once, because this was the place where Nine Tails was sealed. But unlike before, the water that could only reach his ankles had now directly submerged Naruto's shoulders. At this moment, Naruto was very clear about where he wanted to go. He controlled his body to slowly float up, and instinctively moved his chakra to stand directly on the water as usual. But unlike what Naruto imagined, he didn't stand on the water as usual. Instead, after treading on the water for a while, he fell into the water again. It seems that I can't use my treading technique here. Naruto quickly realized the reason why he couldn't tread on the water, but he wasn't discouraged. He directly used his arms to paddle the water and swam towards the place where Nine Tails was sealed. Soon, a very tall iron gate appeared in front of Naruto. The iron gate, which was originally densely covered with talismans, was now only left with the last and largest talisman. Human. Kyuubi seemed to have sensed Naruto's aura, or perhaps because the powerful seal binding him became weak. The moment he sensed Naruto's aura, Kyuubi behind the iron gate roared. At the same time, Nine Tails' huge head also appeared in front of Naruto. The flame-like gorgeous fur, scarlet beast eyes, and huge mouth all showed Naruto how dangerous it was standing in front of him. Nine Tails stared at Naruto in front of it. Its violent chakra overflowed from behind the iron gate. Like a red bubble, it quickly expelled all the sewage that was originally filled with sewage at this moment. The red bubble had almost covered the entire space of the sewer in an instant. A large part of Naruto's body was also covered by the red bubbles. The red bubbles were the manifestation of Nine Tails' chakra, so just like Nine Tails' chakra, it gave Naruto a strong burning sensation. It wasn't just the burning sensation. At this moment, Naruto's spirit was also bewitched by Nine Tails to a certain extent. The voice of Nine Tails kept appearing in Naruto's mind. Uncover it, uncover this talisman. Uncover this talisman, and you will obtain endless power. Uncover this talisman, and you will defeat all your enemies. Uncover this talisman, and the difficulty surrounding your heart will be solved. Nine Tails' bewitching voice kept ringing in Naruto's mind, but Naruto's eyes were exceptionally clear. Naruto's mouth seemed to be chanting something. Every time Naruto finished a sentence, the Nine Tails chakra that wrapped around Naruto faded a little. This was the chant that Shina Kushina taught Naruto after learning that the Nine Tails in Naruto's body had gone out of control. Although it couldn't completely suppress Nine Tails, this chant could protect the spirit of the person chanting it. If it were any other time, Naruto, who had recovered, would never get close to the Nine Tails seal. But now, Naruto came here to open the Nine Tails seal so that he could control the power of the Nine Tails. So Naruto still slowly walked towards the place where the seal talisman was located. Nine Tails could naturally feel that its bewitching didn't work, but when it saw Naruto walking towards it step by step, the pursuit of freedom still drove Nine Tails to slowly shape the chakra that it had released. Steps made of red foam appeared in front of Naruto, but Naruto wasn't afraid at all. Like a determined warrior about to charge into battle, he walked up the steps step by step. Finally, Naruto's figure had appeared in front of the seal talisman, and even a small corner of the huge seal talisman was uncovered. Nine Tails, who had been staring fiercely at Naruto, couldn't help but have some desire for freedom in its violent eyes. The seal was lifted. Chapter 566. Taking off the remaining talisman, the iron gate that sealed Nine Tails finally appeared in front of Naruto. In the position that was originally covered by the talisman, there was a round thing that looked like a door lock. Looking at this strangely shaped door lock, Naruto slowly looked at Nine Tails in the gate. Although the moment he noticed that Naruto was looking at him, Nine Tails restrained all the desire for freedom in his eyes, but Naruto could still see a trace of desire in Nine Tails' eyes. Who doesn't desire freedom? Even an unintelligent bird would instinctively fly towards the nearest tree the moment it was released from its cage, let alone a tailed beast that had intelligence in its body. Speaking of which, what did the tailed beasts do wrong? They were sealed by human beings for most of the time. Just because their power was too great, just because human beings coveted their great power, the tailed beasts had to lose their most important freedom. Without freedom, they would rather die. For every person with intelligence or even a thinking life, freedom is the most precious thing. Did the tailed beasts really have such a strong hostility to human beings at the beginning of their birth? Did the tailed beasts really like to slaughter living creatures? Naruto didn't know, even many people who were proficient in the history of the shinobi world and even myths didn't know. All they could know was the story of the tailed beasts slaughtering the human world in the short hundreds of thousands of years. Naruto didn't know why, but there was a kind of pity in his heart when he looked at Nine Tails. Although he was threatened by Nine Tails more than once, and even when he used Nine Tails' chakra, he went berserk again and again. The tragedy of his childhood was even because of such a powerful tailed beast sealed in his body. It is undeniable that there was a time when Naruto resented the existence of such a creature in his body. But with the growth of age and the improvement of experience, Naruto found that he didn't hate the tailed beasts so much. The reason why he became the column force wasn't because of the tailed beast's will. So who else can he hate? The one who sealed the tailed beast in his body was his father, the masked man who released the tailed beast from his mother's body. After thinking about it for a while, Naruto was surprised to find that he couldn't treat anyone with resentment, because all of this seemed to be a script arranged by a pair of invisible hands. Everything appeared so just right and unexpected. So gradually, Naruto learned to accept his identity as the column force, and accept the fact that he couldn't resist the fact that it had happened to him. Although the Nine Tails is a tailed beast, it is also an animal. Perhaps due to its animal instincts, the Nine Tails could still sense human emotions. Moreover, the current Naruto almost didn't conceal the pity and grief in his eyes at all. In a trance, the Nine Tails even felt that Naruto's figure had quietly changed, turning into the extraordinary figure that stood in front of it like a god when it was still a child. It shook its head with all its might, expelling this ridiculous thought from its mind. Now isn't the time to think about such nonsense. Unlocking the seal and regaining my freedom is the most important thing. Naruto withdrew his gaze and looked at the door lock in front of him. Naruto stretched out his right hand in front of him and slowly opened his palm. There was obviously no fluctuation of chakra, but black runes suddenly drilled out from Naruto's palm. Black runes constantly condensed in Naruto's palm. If one observed carefully, it wouldn't be difficult to notice that these black runes that constantly appeared in Naruto's hand were the runes that rushed into Naruto's body from the scroll toad. The black runes constantly appeared in Naruto's palm. The black runes were like pieces of building blocks that constantly pieced together in Naruto's hand to form a shape. Finally, when the last rune was integrated into such a building block, a black object that looked a bit strange but was obviously a key appeared in Naruto's hand. Nine Tails. Naruto looked at the strange black key in his hand and cast his gaze at Nine Tails in the iron gate. I don't know what kind of mood I should have to face you now, but whether it is my heart or the current situation of the shinobi world, I have to choose to unlock your seal. You have been in my body all this time, so you should also know what is happening in the shinobi world through me. If Akatsuki wants to resurrect the Jubi, all 9 of you will be pulled out. Although I don't know if you are really pulled out, not only will I lose my life because of the Jubi, but you will also be able to maintain your independent will after being integrated into the Jubi. I'm not threatening you, I'm just stating such a fact to you objectively. Although I'm a little ashamed, I really don't want to lose my life like this, and I don't want the shinobi world to be shrouded in the void of Tsukuyomi space by Akatsuki. So, now I will unlock the last layer of the seal for you, and I will give you the choice of everything. In the end, you will fight side by side with me or both of us will suffer, I will leave it all to you. It has to be said that after being in contact with Watergate for so long, Naruto has become eloquent. Just like the tone used by Watergate to persuade others, there are not so many empty reasons, but objectively stating one fact after another, and providing a win-win choice for the other party. Ignoring the expression of Nine Tails who was obviously lost in thought, Naruto directly inserted the black key in his hand into the gate, and with the sound of the mechanism, the gate representing the last layer of the seal was finally opened. Almost in a blink of an eye, the dark sewer began to fade away like a painting that had been washed. When everything disappeared, Naruto and Nine Tails all appeared in a seemingly endless white space. Naruto finally saw the full appearance of Nine Tails this time. The huge figure with red fur and the swaying nine tails behind him made Naruto feel the irrepressible powerful aura and elegant posture of Nine Tails. Chapter 567. After staying in the cage for a long time, he returned to nature. Although this sentence can't completely describe the mood of Nine Tails at this moment, it's not far from it. At this moment, Nine Tails doesn't know if it's because of freedom or some other reason, but he's not as violent and aggressive as he was when he was sealed in Naruto's body. Human, looking at Naruto in front of him, Nine Tails slowly said to Naruto, "I have to say, what you said just now really moved me. You are very smart, and you have already grasped what I desire the most at the moment you decided to negotiate with me." Freedom, what a tempting word. In front of Naruto, Nine Tails didn't hide his desire for freedom at this moment. After hearing the words of Nine Tails, Naruto's heart also slowly relaxed a little, because since Nine Tails can say such a thing, it at least proves one point, that is, there is a certain possibility of reaching a consensus with Nine Tails. So what is your decision? Looking at Nine Tails, Naruto said to him. Although I'm suppressed to a certain extent due to the seal in your body, I still have a certain level of perception towards the outside world. Of course, I understand how dangerous the outside world is, but you have ignored a very important point. Kyuubi's pair of beast eyes stared at Naruto, with a hint of contempt in his eyes. I myself have strength beyond most people in the shinobi world. Even if I leave you, I can survive in the shinobi world with my strength. Don't think that because so many column force were captured, that the ability of a bijou is limited. The power of each bijou is beyond the reach of human beings. The reason why so many column force were captured is because the seal on the bijou suppressed a certain amount of power. If a bijou really breaks free from the restriction of the seal, then no matter who wants to capture us, they will have to pay a great price. But unlike us, you are a column force. Once you lose the source of power like us, your strength will be greatly reduced. So the reality is, you need me, but I don't need you. Although Naruto has no way to verify what Nine Tails said, the strong confidence exuded from Nine Tails made Naruto believe the truth of what Nine Tails said. Because as Nine Tails said, if Nine Tails devours his spirit and reappear in the shinobi world with his body, as long as he goes through an extremely short recovery period, Nine Tails can recover his strength with his almost endless chakra. And if he can't obtain the power of Nine Tails, then he really can't protect himself. Boy, you're lucky. I've been staying in your body for a long time, and to a certain extent, I've watched you grow up. Although you don't seem so smart most of the time, and sometimes you're simply a model of one-track mind. But whether it's the toughness in your body that ordinary people don't have, or the faint aura that I feel unexpectedly familiar with, it's all affecting me, making me want to give you a chance. Nine Tails, who was half lying on the ground, suddenly straightened up, and said to Naruto with a serious look in his eyes, I will use my power and the power of this small world to condense a clone with the same ability as you. This is the opportunity I'm giving you, do your best to defeat him. I will completely open a part of my power to you, so that you will have a powerful strength that you have never had before. Do you agree with this proposal? Although Nine Tails seemed to be asking for Naruto's opinion, Nine Tails' chakra, which was as majestic as the vast ocean, rushed out of his body. In the chaotic world where Naruto's body was floating, a transparent golden energy with a somewhat ancient aura rushed directly into Naruto's spiritual world and mixed with Nine Tails' power. The two powers entangled and influenced each other, and a figure was gradually molded by the two powers. With the continuous infusion of the Kyuubi's chakra and the golden energy constantly exerting its power, this figure, which originally looked quite illusory, has become solid at this moment. The figure gradually turned into Naruto's appearance, but unlike Naruto, the clone created by Nine Tails looked like it was shrouded in a layer of black gauze, and the whole figure looked a little gray. Naruto's golden hair and yellow skin have become gray at this moment, and Naruto's blue eyes directly turned into Kyuubi's eyes. The same aura as Nine Tails drifted out of the clone, bloodthirsty and violent. The clone stood opposite Naruto as if it was born for battle. Naruto did not answer Nine Tails' question with his mouth, but directly told Nine Tails with his actions that he accepted such a trial. Naruto skillfully summoned a shadow clone. With the help of the shadow clone, a sphere condensed from chakra appeared in his hand, Futon Rasengan. The shadow clone disappeared automatically, and Naruto dragged the Rasengan in his hand and controlled his chakra to rush towards his leg. Naruto's physical fitness was very outstanding, and at this moment, under the stimulation of chakra, it became extremely powerful. And this strength was naturally reflected in Naruto's speed at this moment. It was almost impossible to see with the naked eye. Naruto appeared beside Nine Tails' clone. During this whole process, Nine Tails' clone did not move at all. Although Naruto didn't quite understand what was going on with this Nine Tails' clone, Naruto knew that as long as the Rasengan in his hand can hit Nine Tails' clone, then he will have a great advantage in the following battle. So Naruto did not hesitate to press the Rasengan in his hand on Nine Tails' clone. Seeing the Rasengan in his hand getting closer and closer to Nine Tails' clone, Naruto's eyes couldn't help but carry the joy of a successful attack. As the Rasengan got closer and closer to Nine Tails' clone, a thick layer of dark red mist suddenly appeared on Nine Tails' clone. At this moment, Naruto's speed was already very fast, but Nine Tails' clone was obviously better. The palm wrapped in dark red mist directly grabbed Naruto's wrist that was holding the Rasengan, and with a slight force in his hand, the dark red mist also invaded Naruto's wrist under the guidance of Nine Tails' clone, cutting off the chakra supply from Naruto's Rasengan. Pop like a bubble bursting, the Rasengan with powerful destructive power dissipated directly in the air at this moment. Chapter 568. Although it seems that the power used by the Nine Tails' clone is not the same as his own power, Naruto can feel that although the characteristics shown are not so similar, the dark red mist that constantly wrapped around the body of the Nine Tails' clone is actually an energy that is extremely similar to chakra. Nine Tails is right. Although this Nine Tails' clone is different from him in many aspects, his energy level and physical fitness are the same as his. After calming down, Naruto finally understood that when he rushed towards the Nine Tails' clone just now, the Nine Tails' clone was not unresponsive, but it has been observing his attack route, and then it completely predicted all of his attacks. It was obvious that the Nine Tails' clone's speed was slightly slower because of the lack of inertia, but it grabbed his wrist very accurately. Relying on the huge advantage of chakra, it injected a lot of chakra into his wrist, directly blocking the meridians of his wrist, making his Rasengan ineffective. Naruto never thought that he could make the enemy's ninjutsu ineffective in this way. And such a thing is actually done by someone who has the same physical fitness and energy level as himself. Slightly frowning his brows, Naruto looked at the Nine Tails' clone that grabbed his wrist and directly exerted force on his feet. Using his wrist as a fulcrum, Naruto directly leaped up. Naruto's body directly leaped over the Nine Tails' clone's body like a flying fish. At this moment, Naruto is using the strength of his whole body to pull the Nine Tails' clone's arm. The same physical fitness makes the Nine Tails' clone unable to completely resist such a pull. After realizing that if he continues to be pulled like this, then he will definitely lose his balance due to Naruto's pull. Almost instantly weighing the pros and cons, the Nine Tails' clone directly let go of his hand that was holding Naruto, wanting to make Naruto's pull ineffective, but at this moment, Naruto directly turned his wrist from the controlled one to the controller. The Nine Tails' clone saw that his wrist was directly held by Naruto, and immediately understood Naruto's intention. Naruto wants to use this method to fight for a little advantage in the battle later. In such an evenly matched battle, once one person makes a mistake, it may lead to a complete loss. Now that Naruto has fallen into a certain disadvantage because of the attack just now, Naruto now hopes to use this move to directly erase his disadvantage and even directly reverse the situation. After the Nine Tails clone noticed Naruto's intention, not only did he not want to break free from Naruto's control, but he directly exerted force in the opposite direction of Naruto's force. Ka! Although the battle was very fierce, a crisp sound appeared directly on the battlefield, making it difficult to ignore. At this moment, the Nine Tails clone's arm that was grabbed by Naruto's backhand was at a strange angle. Obviously, in order to break free from Naruto's control, the Nine Tails clone directly dislocated his arm with Naruto's power. Although it was such a huge price to pay, the effect was naturally very outstanding. Regardless of his dislocated arm, the Nine Tails clone used his strange dark red chakra to condense a dark red Rasengan in his hand. Although one of his arms was grabbed by Naruto, the Nine Tails clone still turned around and directly pressed the Rasengan in his hand towards Naruto's body. He must not let himself be hit by such an attack. Rasengan itself is one of the ninjutsu that Naruto is very proficient in, so he is naturally very clear about the power of Rasengan. It is precisely because of this that Naruto knows that he must not completely withstand such an attack, otherwise, no matter how hard he struggles in the battle after that, failure will become inevitable. Naruto directly released his hand that was tightly holding the Nine Tails clone's wrist, then he stepped hard on the ground, and his whole body flew backward. However, the Nine Tails clone did not give up the attack because of this. The dark red Rasengan that could only be held in his hand suddenly flew out from the hand of the Nine Tails clone at this moment. The Rasengan attacked Naruto directly. Naruto was very surprised when he saw that the Rasengan could directly fly out of his hand. It was precisely because of this surprise that Naruto injected more chakra into his leg, and his speed soared again. Carefully observing the Rasengan that was flying towards him, Naruto found that there was a faint, almost imperceptible dark red thread between the dark red Rasengan and the palm of the Nine Tails clone at this moment. This is a technique that is often used to control puppets and ninjutsu, that is, chakra thread. Whether it is Tien Woodleaf, who is good at controlling ninjutsu, or Kankuro, who Naruto is more familiar with in Sunigakure, they have used chakra thread in front of Naruto more than once. Now the Nine Tails clone is obviously using his chakra control ability that is far beyond Naruto's original body to directly create such a chakra thread to continuously inject chakra into the dark red Rasengan that was separated from his hand. But after all, Rasengan is not a simple ninjutsu, it requires fine control of chakra. Even the Nine Tails clone at this moment does not have the ability to completely maintain the power of Rasengan through chakra thread. So at this moment, the Rasengan flying towards Naruto actually weakened with the increase of distance and the passage of time, whether in terms of size or aura, it is obviously weakened by more than a little bit. Looking at the dark red Rasengan constantly shrinking, Naruto's heart began to constantly estimate the power of the dark red Rasengan cast by the Nine Tails clone. Finally, when the Rasengan was worn down to the size of a ping-pong ball, Naruto directly punched the Rasengan with his hand covered with chakra. Bang! A loud noise was directly produced at the moment when Naruto's fist touched the Rasengan, and the huge airwave even lifted the clothes worn by the Nine Tails clone standing a little far away. At this moment, the expression on the face of the Nine Tails clone was no longer the stupefied expression when he first appeared. Instead, there was a bit of indifference and playfulness, which looked very strange. A mocking smile hung on the corner of the Nine Tails clone's mouth. The eyes of the Nine Tails clone just stared at the storm that appeared because of the explosion of the Rasengan. Nine Tails, who has been watching coldly from the side, also looked at the clone created by the energy in this space with a strange look. Although he can still control the existence of this clone at will, it is obvious that this clone is no longer completely under his control at this moment. Chapter 569. Using a clone that isn't completely under his control to test Naruto is a good choice. The most important thing is that the aura coming from this clone makes it difficult for Nine Tails to arouse any hostility in his heart. In this case, Nine Tails naturally used a laissez-faire attitude towards this clone. The chaotic storm finally subsided, and Naruto, who was in the center of the storm, naturally reappeared. The clothes worn on Naruto's body were slightly tattered, and many places on Naruto's body had large and small holes because of the destruction of the sharp wind blades in the storm group. At this moment, Naruto's eyes were no longer so clear, and his eyes were filled with a sense of violence at the moment. His originally blue eyes were also quietly covered with a layer of scarlet light. The wounds on Naruto's body began to heal quickly at this moment, and there was even a faint smoke rising near the wounds. Looking at Naruto's rapidly healing body, Nine-Tails couldn't help but show a touch of surprise in his eyes. He originally thought that this was just a simple spiritual space, but he didn't expect that Naruto could actually use his extraordinary recovery ability. The Uzumaki clan itself has chakra capacity and recovery ability that ordinary ninjas can't reach, and Naruto, as the Nine-Tails column force, has used the chakra of Nine-Tails a lot over the years, so Naruto's body has also undergone a certain degree of change under the long-term use of chakra by Nine-Tails. The most intuitive thing is Naruto's extraordinary recovery ability. Even Nine-Tails didn't expect that Naruto's body could accommodate his weak chakra and burst it out at this moment. Seeing Naruto's state, Nine-Tails' clone, who had a subtle smile on his face, also quickly restrained all the expressions on his face, as cold and indifferent as when he first appeared. Don't know if it's because the Nine-Tails chakra in his body broke out, or because the injury just now stimulated Naruto's thinking. At this moment, Naruto seems to have entered a violent state. A simple seal appeared in his hand, and clouds of smoke rose from Naruto's side. Ninjutsu, multiple shadow clone jutsu. Almost roaring, Naruto shouted the name of the ninjutsu he used at the moment. At this moment, Naruto didn't have a trace of the Nine-Tails clone just now. At this moment, Naruto seems to have fallen into a strange state. At this moment, Naruto is more like a beast than a human. Roar! 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 As the clouds of smoke dispersed, clones with the same red eyes appeared beside Naruto. Dozens of clones shouted together, roaring together, like tigers roaring in the forest, full of a beast's ferocity. This kid, looking at Naruto, Nine-Tails' eyes flashed with a trace of appreciation. Perhaps from the appearance, Naruto has completely lost his mind at this moment, but Nine-Tails knows that although the chakra contained in Naruto's body can help Naruto quickly recover his injuries, but that's it. If such a small amount of chakra could completely affect Naruto's mind, Nine-Tails would have rushed out of such a seal long ago. How strong Naruto's mind is, perhaps only Nine-Tails hidden in Naruto's body can understand better. So the current state of Naruto is actually the result of Naruto's deliberate guidance. Using the Nine-Tails chakra in his body as a primer, he directly released all the beastly nature in his body. Using his most violent and most reckless attack to tear all the enemies standing in front of him to shreds. At this moment, hundreds of shadow clones and Naruto's original body all ran wildly towards Nine-Tails' clone. The shadow clones and Naruto's original body were like beasts at this moment, running on all fours towards Nine-Tails' clone. At this moment, Naruto's state was very physical. Although his body was completely following his instincts, Naruto's consciousness seemed to be stripped of all thoughts and emotions at this moment. He was like a machine that coldly analyzed all the information in the battle. Judging from the situation just now, Nine-Tails' clone's ability to control chakra was obviously above his own. In this case, if he were to widen the distance between himself and Nine-Tails' clone and enter a long-range battle, he would undoubtedly fall into a disadvantage. After comprehensive analysis, Naruto was surprised to find that the only place where he could see a chance of winning against Nine-Tails' clone was in close combat. After all, his physical fitness was similar to that of Nine-Tails' clone. Although close combat skills are very important, in the final analysis, it still depends on the will of both sides. If it's a competition of will, Naruto believes that he will never lose to such a cold, puppet-like guy. Naruto and his shadow clones quickly approached Nine-Tails' clone. Under the control of Naruto and the deliberate influence of the beastly nature of the shadow clones, almost all the parts of their body that could cause damage to the enemy were used to attack Nine-Tails' clone. Nine-Tails' clone didn't use shadow clones to deal with it like Naruto did. Instead, he stood in the same place without using any ninjutsu and directly took a defensive posture. Looking at the shadow clones that attacked him fiercely, Nine-Tails' clone didn't show any nervous expression. His eyes and face were still full of indifference as before. In an understatement, Nine-Tails' clone waved his arms and directly broke the shadow clones that attacked him one by one. Although the nine-tailed clone's movements weren't that fast, there was no way to dodge the nine-tailed clone's every move. That kind of feeling was vaguely similar to when Nangongja once showed his strength in front of Naruto. He couldn't avoid it at all. The waving arms were like heavy hammers, attacking Naruto's shadow clones one after another. Originally, Naruto hoped to use his shadow clones to consume a lot of stamina of Nine-Tails' clone, but if all his shadow clones were consumed here, it would be too much of a loss. Chapter 570. Watching his clones being destroyed one by one, Naruto also felt the pain from the attacks on his clones. Enduring the continuous pain, the madness hidden in Naruto's eyes became clearer and clearer. As the madness became stronger and stronger, the attacks of the remaining shadow clones and Naruto's true body became more and more relentless. With the strengthening of Naruto and his shadow clone jutsu's attacks, Kyuubi's clone jutsu gradually felt some pressure. The appearance of defeating Naruto's clones with ease had been broken. On the contrary, Naruto's clones would occasionally receive a few attacks from them. Although madness in battle might not necessarily allow one to win the battle, such madness was enough to make the enemy feel difficult to deal with. Seeing that their attacks were effective, Naruto and his clones were also excited. The opportunity to win seemed to have appeared in front of Naruto at that moment. As long as he could continue to fight like this, Naruto felt that he had a chance of winning. Realizing that he had fallen into a certain disadvantage, Nine-Tails' clone's eyes suddenly flashed with a golden light. This ray of light was like the finishing touch. After it appeared, the nine-tailed avatar seemed to come alive. And the moment this golden light appeared, the connection between Nine-Tails and this clone was completely cut off. And the moment the connection was cut off, Nine-Tails finally felt a familiar aura from the clone. Although a long time had passed, the moment this aura appeared, a thin layer of mist uncontrollably appeared in Nine-Tailed Beast's eyes. Old Man of the Six Paths? Nine-Tails murmured softly, his eyes revealing endless recollections. If Nine-Tails had to choose the happiest time of his life, it would be the time when he was still young and under the protection of the Six Paths, where he didn't have to worry about life and death and only had to play freely. I can't go back. No matter what, I can't go back to those days. Nine-Tails' eyes were filled with reminiscence, but more than that, there was a sadness that couldn't be erased. Nine-Tails, a slightly old voice suddenly appeared in Nine-Tails' mind. Hearing the name that he hadn't heard for a long time, Nine-Tails' expression couldn't help but become absent-minded. Faintly, Naruto, who was fighting Kyuubi's clone in front of him, and the white boundless space disappeared at this moment. A figure with white hair, white clothes, and many wrinkles on his cheeks and eyes that revealed endless wisdom suddenly appeared before Nine-Tails. Old Man of the Six Paths? You didn't die. Yes, the person who appeared in front of Nine-Tails and called out Nine-Tails' name is Six Paths Sennin, known as the ancestor of the shinobi world. Hearing Nine-Tails' exclamation, Six Paths Sennin's face revealed a helpless smile. Slowly shaking his head, his half-opened eyes flashed with a deep glint as he said to Nine-Tailed, "Don't worry, I'm not going to let you go. Nine-Tails, I have been dead for many years. Now I'm just a remnant of my will that I forcibly left behind before I left the world. If it wasn't related to the future of the shinobi world, I would never appear. This time, I appeared in front of you for the blonde boy that is being created by you and me." When Nine-Tails heard Six Paths Sennin's words and knew that Six Paths Sennin appeared for Naruto, not only did he not have any doubts in his eyes, but he also understood. A strong physique, an amazing amount of chakra, an optimistic and fearless attitude, and more importantly, a familiar aura that has been faintly emitting from his body. Is this human really related to you? Sure enough, Nine Tails wasn't unaware. Among the Nine Tails can be said to be the most arrogant one. After the baptism of time, this kind of arrogance has not faded, and it has become more and more obvious. It has developed into a kind of arrogance that can be called arrogance. For all people weaker than himself, Nine Tails doesn't put him in his eyes. Although Naruto's performance has been good, this alone is not enough for Nine Tails to give Naruto so many opportunities. He is the reincarnation of Asura's child. Hearing Nine Tails' question and seeing Nine Tails' slightly determined eyes, Six Paths Sannin knew that he can't deliberately avoid this question. And although this is considered a secret, it's not a secret for Nine Tails who has survived from ancient times to the present. You must already know the current situation of the shinobi world, right? In the darkness, there is a force stirring the wind and clouds. In this unprecedented Fourth Shinobi World War, I predict that there will be a person full of ambition who will summon the jubi that I have sealed. In ancient times, the ten-tailed beast turned countless people into puppet-like existences without consciousness. That scene is still vivid in my mind, and every life is worth protecting, so I hope you can help this child calm the turmoil in the shinobi world and do your best to prevent the jubi's resurrection. I'm just a remnant of my will now, and there's very little I can do. And from what I've observed, the two children, Asura and Indra, in this life, didn't fall into a completely opposite situation like the countless previous reincarnations. In this life, between Asura and Indra, a powerful bond has miraculously appeared. When Asura and Indra truly unite, they will be able to create an unprecedented miracle. Looking at the hopeful look in Six Paths Sannin's eyes, Nine Tails was speechless. Nine Tails has seen Asura and Indra's first reincarnation with his own eyes. They are two powerful ninjas who are comparable to or even stronger than him. But in the current Nine Tails view, these two people have a huge flaw in their temperament. Even if Asura and Indra appear in the shinobi world, they may not be able to stop the nine-tailed beasts from gathering together to form the jubi. Not to mention the current Asura and Indra who have experienced countless reincarnations, and even their memories from ancient times have begun to become blurred. Chapter 571. For some reason, although Nine Tails could feel a familiar aura from the Sage of the Six Paths, he still felt a sense of vigilance. But in Kyubi's heart, he couldn't help but feel a sense of vigilance. It seemed that the Rikudo Sannin who gave him life, Otsutsuki Hagoromo, wasn't someone he could completely rely on, and could even harm him. This feeling was inexplicable, but Nine-Tailed Fox believed it without a doubt. Compared to what she saw and heard, Kyubi believed more in her intuition that there was no need to doubt. Sage of the Six Paths. What do you need me to do? Looking at the Sage of the Six Paths standing opposite him, Nine Tails still asked the Sage of the Six Paths despite having a certain degree of vigilance. I don't need you to do anything. I just need you to abide by the agreement between you and Naruto. The Sage of the Six Paths said to Nine Tails with some confidence. You've watched Naruto grow up since he was a child. I'm sure you know how much potential he has. With my blessing, this doppelganger's strength has even surpassed Naruto's own. I won't go easy on him in this matter. Nine Tails also believed that the Sage of the Six Paths would never go easy on him in this matter, because not only would it be an insult to Naruto, but it would also be an insult to himself. After taking a deep look at the Sage of the Six Paths, Nine Tails slowly nodded his head. After all, the Sage of the Six Paths' request did not conflict with his original intention. He even increased the difficulty for Naruto instead of reducing the difficulty for Naruto. In a trance, the Sage of the Six Paths in front of Nine Tails had completely disappeared at this moment. In front of Nine Tails was still the doppelganger and Naruto who were fighting. It was only a short period of absent-mindedness, but the current situation of the battle had completely changed. Nine Tails' doppelganger ruthlessly dislocated his arm to break free from Naruto's fighting rhythm. Although Nine-Tails' doppelganger reattached his arm later, the dislocation still affected the fighting ability of the arm. After Naruto noticed this, he began to madly attack Nine-Tails' doppelganger's arm that was not very flexible. At this moment, the battle between Nine-Tails' doppelganger and Naruto was almost non-technical. They were just exchanging blows. Nine-Tails' doppelganger's punch directly hit Naruto's cheek. After receiving the punch firmly, Naruto immediately stretched out his hand and grabbed Nine-Tails' doppelganger's wrist that was attacking him. He immediately clenched his other hand and attacked Nine-Tails' doppelganger's abdomen. The abdomen was the part of the human body that was most likely to feel pain. Naruto's punch directly made the expressionless Nine-Tails' doppelganger's facial muscles twitch. Seeing this, Nine-Tails had more or less understood the final outcome of this battle. Close combat tested one's willpower the most. When one's spirit and body became extremely tired, the only thing that could drive a person to continue fighting was a strong will. And compared to Naruto, who had always been fighting with high spirits, Nine-Tails' doppelganger was really not worth mentioning. At the end of the day, Nine-Tails' doppelganger was just a puppet-like existence created by mixing a trace of the Six Dao's power and Nine-Tails' chakra. Looking at Naruto's bloody body, Nine-Tails' eyes couldn't help but flash with a trace of struggle. To be honest, Nine-Tails really didn't think much of Naruto's current strength. If he really broke free from all the shackles, Nine-Tails believed that he would definitely become stronger than Naruto. However, whether it was the words that the Six Dao Immortal said to him just now or the vague feeling he got from Naruto, they were all affecting Nine-Tails, making Nine-Tails feel that he was the most suitable choice to be with Naruto. Forget it. I'll hold back a little and let Naruto control a part of my strength. Bang! The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground sounded in Nine-Tails' ears. Looking toward the sound, Nine-Tails' doppelganger had been punched to the ground by Naruto. His body, which was already somewhat illusory, finally disappeared without a trace at this moment. Seeing that his enemy was finally defeated by him, Naruto suddenly couldn't bear the fatigue in his body and mind after experiencing such a battle with someone who was evenly matched and even slightly stronger than him. As the fatigue hit him, Naruto finally sat on the ground. But there was a bright smile on Naruto's face. At this moment, Naruto was undoubtedly happy. Because in the battle with Nine-Tails' doppelganger, Naruto actually learned a lot of tactics and fighting methods that he didn't think of before from Nine-Tails' doppelganger. More importantly, after defeating the Nine-Tails' doppelganger, it was equivalent to gaining the approval of Nine-Tails. Am I finally going to break free from such a powerless state? Looking at the bright smile on Naruto's face and the glimmer of hope in his eyes, Nine-Tails couldn't help but think of his childhood. The same ignorance, fearlessness, and recklessness. Nine-Tails finally vaguely understood why he was so close to Naruto. To a large extent, Naruto was very similar to himself who hadn't experienced the hardships of time. It's precisely because he can no longer have this kind of mood, so Kyuubi actually faintly hopes that he can protect Naruto, so that Naruto can always maintain this kind of smile and hope. Naruto, who was sitting on the ground, seemed to be aware of Nine-Tails' slightly gentle gaze. The smile on his face became brighter and he clenched his wounded hand that was still dripping blood into a fist and extended it towards Nine-Tails. Stinking brat, looking at Naruto's appearance, for the first time, Nine-Tails didn't call Naruto an ice-cold human. Instead, he affectionately called Naruto stinking brat. Do your best. Let's guard our future well. After saying this, Nine-Tails didn't care about Naruto's reaction. He suddenly opened his mouth. A blazing red chakra ball condensed in Nine-Tails' mouth, but Naruto didn't feel the slightest bit of hostility. The chakra ball that exuded a powerful aura rushed directly towards Naruto and wrapped Naruto in it. Chapter 572. Sitting in the ruins, Killer Bee, the Hachibi column force, was sitting cross-legged on the open space. In his hand, he was holding the ninja sword of Kisame Kisame, the member of Akatsuki that he killed before. Kisame is a very magical sword, because it is not like an icicle and emotionless weapon, but more like a living creature. As the owner of the sword, he needs to inject his chakra into the Kisame to feed it, and even take time to communicate with it. At this moment, Killer Bee is using the majestic Bijou chakra in his body to feed the shark's muscles, constantly feeling the emotions of the shark's muscles, and constantly using his own chakra to wash the shark's muscles. The reason why Killer Bee is constantly using his chakra to cleanse the Kisame is because he found that there is a part of it that no matter how much power he mobilizes, there is no way to invade it. It is precisely because of this part of the Kisame that a kind of vigilance appeared in Killer Bee's heart. After all, the defeat of Ghost Mermaid and Ghost Mermaid was reasonable, but it went way too smoothly. Just when Killer Bee was preparing to go deeper and even forcibly use his chakra to break through this part, a strong fluctuation suddenly appeared in the relief sculpture that entered the small space. Naruto? Or Nine Tails? Hachibi, who was sealed in Killer Bee's body, felt the powerful pressure of the nine-tailed beast's aura from the relief sculpture almost instantly. However, Hachibi was not sure who had come out of the small space and was in charge of the situation at the moment. Killer Bee naturally knows what Hachibi is worried about at this moment. If Nine Tails really invaded Naruto's body, with the hostility of Nine Tails to mankind, the threat to the ninja world is not less than the Akatsuki organization that is waging war on the entire ninja world at this moment. The chakra in his body surged, and even the Hachibi chakra in his body was mobilized by Killer Bee. At this moment, a part of Killer Bee's body also showed the characteristics of Hachibi. The Kisame in Killer Bee's hand felt the powerful chakra coming from Killer Bee's body, and like a hungry shark, it constantly devoured the chakra that approached it. However, the chakra that the Kisame could devour was just a drop in the ocean compared to the chakra that was constantly emerging from Killer Bee's body, so Killer Bee didn't pay much attention to it. Finally, the powerful fluctuation from the relief sculpture finally stopped, and Killer Bee's hand holding the Kisame also became stronger. Naruto's body was wrapped in the golden chakra flame, and the flame condensed a pair of flaming ears with the characteristics of a fox on his head. Naruto has now entered the true Nine Tails chakra mode. A powerful momentum came from Naruto's body, but Naruto has also noticed the strong burden on his body. This mode can't be used for too long, otherwise, it will definitely endanger the foundation of his body. After checking his physical condition, Naruto also saw Killer Bee standing in front of him with a vigilant face. "Uncle Bee, don't be so nervous, it's me. I have reached an agreement with Nine Tails, I can use the power of Nine Tails without any hindrance." Naruto showed his signature smile to Killer Bee. Naruto's body was burning with the golden chakra flame. His bright smile combined with the golden flame burning on his body made him feel as bright as the sun. But, suddenly, Naruto felt a kind of malice from the Kisame in Killer Bee's hand, as if piercing his heart. He instinctively mobilized the chakra in his body. A giant chakra hand appeared behind Naruto's back. Under Naruto's control, the giant chakra hand directly grabbed the barbed blade of the Kisame. The chakra flame burning on the giant hand seemed to have encountered gasoline at this moment. It spread directly from the giant chakra hand, and almost in a moment, it had already burned the entire skin of the shark. Killer Bee knew that Naruto would never harm him, so he immediately let go of the Kisame and let it fall directly to the ground. Yo Naruto boy has become stronger, the Kisame is very strange. You and I will work together to discover the mystery. Oh yeah, Killer Bee said to Naruto with a strange voice. And Naruto also quickly understood Killer Bee's meaning. After all, Killer Bee had been holding the Kisame in his hand for a long time. Naturally, he was clearer than Naruto about some of the weird things. When the chakra flame burned on Naruto's body, he couldn't feel its power, but when the chakra flame attached to the Kisame, its terrifying destructive power was directly displayed. Not only was the temperature terrifying, but more importantly, the solid shell on the surface of the Kisame actually had a tendency to disintegrate at this moment. Wah-wah. After the Kisame suffered unbearable damage, it let out a strange roar like a living creature. However, Naruto didn't let go of the chakra hand holding the Kisame, he just let the Kisame roar strangely. Finally, as if the Kisame couldn't withstand such damage, a powerful chakra burst out from its body. But this powerful chakra that burst out from the Kisame was not the chakra that Killer Bee fed it. Instead, it had another familiar feeling. In the Nine Tails chakra mode, Naruto's perception of chakra became very sensitive. From this kind of chakra, Naruto quickly sensed the owner of the Kisame. Kisame, Kisame? Hearing Naruto's slightly surprised cry, Killer Bee, who was standing on the side, couldn't help but understand. Sure enough, Kisame Kisame still has a backup plan. As soon as Naruto's slightly surprised voice fell, the chakra flame wrapped around the Kisame was directly dispersed by the powerful chakra that burst out from the Kisame. The shape of the Kisame also gradually changed, from the shape of a Kisame to a human shape. And this human shape transformed from the Kisame had a face that was almost identical to the Kisame Kisame. After a short period of sluggishness, the Kisame Kisame took a deep look at Naruto and Killer Bee standing opposite it. It didn't choose to fight directly, instead, it directly turned around and increased its speed, trying to get away from Naruto and Killer Bee. Chapter 573. Seeing that Kisame Kisame suddenly appeared in front of them instead of Shark Bone, and had no intention to fight at all, Naruto and Killer Bee felt that this was a conspiracy. After all, Kisame Kisame made such an act of faking his death, there must be a purpose. Chase. Naruto and Killer Bee had such a thought at the same time. Killer Bee and Naruto both increased their speed and chased after Kisame Kisame. However, whether it was because the Kisame ghost shark had retained some of its strength before, or because it had fused with the shark's muscles, its physical fitness had greatly improved. The Kisame ghost shark was able to rely on its speed to leave behind the two Jinchuriki who had been blessed by the tailed beasts. While rushing, Kisame Kisame also began to sense the powerful Hachibi chakra in his body from Killer Bee. This powerful chakra that belonged to Hachibi was actually the real purpose of Kisame Kisame. In Akatsuki organization, Kisame Kisame was one of the few people who really knew about Uchiha Obito's almost delusional Eye of the Moon plan in advance. His experience since childhood made Kisame Kisame very disappointed in this world. Uchiha Obito appeared in front of a person who was full of disappointment in this world, and used his silver tongue to describe such an illusory world for Kisame Kisame. Because there was no goal for him to fight for, Kisame 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 also unconsciously regarded Uchiha Obito's almost delusional plan as a pursuit that he could fight for. Originally, Kisame Kisame Kisame's fake death was actually to let himself follow Killer Bee, who had a high status in Kyumo Shinobu village, to explore what kind of plan the 5 great ninja villages were going to use to fight against Akatsuki and Uchiha Obito, but he didn't expect that after entering the Land of Lightning, Killer Bee didn't return to Kyumo Shinobu village to participate in the planning of the battle plan. Instead, he brought Uzumaki Naruto from Woodleaf village to this ruin. Along the way, the conversation between Naruto and Killer Bee was naturally heard by Kisame Kisame Kisame, so Kisame 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 also slightly changed his plan. The resurrection of Jubi requires a huge amount of chakra from the body of the 9 Jinchuriki. Now, 7 of the 9 Jinchuriki have been collected by Akatsuki, and only the Hachibi Jinchuriki and Kyubi Jinchuriki have not been captured yet. However, there was not only one way to resurrect the Jubi. Before he came here, Black Zetsu, who had been acting as the agent of Uchiha Obito, told Kisame Kisame a way to resurrect the Jubi without capturing the 9 tails and the 8 tails. The power of the 9-tailed beasts was indeed the key to resurrecting the 10 tails. Only by gathering the characteristics of the 9-tailed beasts and a huge amount of chakra could the 10 tails be completely resurrected. But if it was only resurrecting the Jubi, it was actually not so difficult. As long as the 9-tailed beasts' chakra were collected as a primer, plus a certain amount of chakra, it was actually completely possible to awaken the Jubi. Although this method may cause the Jubi's power to be somewhat incomplete, but it was also a way to awaken the Jubi. Therefore, Kisame used his shark flesh to continuously absorb the Hachibi chakra from Killer Bee's body during this period of time, in order to leave a backup plan for Uchiha Obito's Eye of the Moon plan. As long as he obtained enough Hachibi chakra as a seed, the possibility of resurrecting the Jubi would become more likely. The only regret was that he didn't collect the Nine Tails chakra, but since he had been discovered, there was nothing he could do. Therefore, Ghost Merman and Ghost Merman decided to stop while they were ahead. At the moment they were discovered, they decided to retreat. After completely integrating himself into the Sharkman's muscles, the physical fitness of Kisame has been greatly improved. Moreover, under the supply of huge chakra from the Sharkman's muscles, Kisame now has the power to surpass Kage level. Just as the Kismet Ghost Shark was using all kinds of skills and pushing his body to the limit to almost leave Naruto and Killer Bee behind, a green figure suddenly appeared in front of the Kismet Ghost Shark, blocking his way. "Aren't you that shark-faced?" Suddenly, he saw the dried persimmon ghost shark that was almost unrecognizable. Although he was a little dazed, he still recognized the dried persimmon ghost shark. After all, when he was in Konoha, Might Guy had a very fierce battle with Kisame. In the following years, for some unknown reason, many battles between Kisame and Might Guy have also taken place. After so many battles, Might Guy naturally remembered the physical features and even the aura of the Kismet Ghost Shark very clearly. However, he still couldn't remember the name of the Kismet Ghost Shark clearly. He still called the Kismet Ghost Shark by the nickname Shark Face. "Woodleaf rare beast. My name is Dried Persimmon Ghost Shark. Remember it." Seeing Might Guy standing in front of him, the Kismet Ghost Shark knew that a battle between him and Might Guy was inevitable. At this moment, the Kismet Ghost Shark looked like he was born for battle. His dark blue body and the sharp spikes that appeared on his joints proved that he had completely entered the battle mode. The Kismet Ghost Shark was very unhappy that he could only run away when he saw Naruto and Killer Bee just now. Although the Might Guy in front of him could be regarded as a strong opponent before, he was now fully strengthened. The Might Guy he met before was definitely not a match for him. Since he could fight wantonly, the Kismet Ghost Shark naturally wouldn't hide his desire to attack. As long as he could defeat Might Guy quickly, he would have time to complete his plan. From the bottom of his heart, Kismet Ghost Shark also hoped that he could defeat Might Guy. After going through so many battles, Might Guy and Kismet Ghost Shark had developed a mutual appreciation for each other. Thinking that he could defeat Might Guy, who was standing in front of him, Kisame Ghost Shark's heart was actually moved a little. Chapter 574. Without any hesitation, Kisame directly rushed towards Might Guy. For a long time, Kisame gave others the impression that he was a ninjutsu-type ninja who relied on his huge chakra to use all kinds of ninjutsu to defeat the enemy. Although he had the Seven Sword of the Mist in his hand, in fact, Kisame didn't have a particularly outstanding record in close combat. And Might Guy was also a person who had fought with Kisame several times, so he had a certain understanding of Kisame. To be honest, Kisame's taijutsu level has only reached the passing line of Jonin, but his taijutsu level isn't the strongest among Jonin. At this moment, Kisame dared to directly attack. Such behavior made Might Guy, who was proficient in taijutsu, slightly raise his vigilance. There must be a reason behind this abnormality. This principle could be applied to everything. Looking at Kisame rushing towards him, Might Guy, as a ninja who specializes in taijutsu, naturally won't be afraid of any taijutsu challenge. Kisame looked at Might Guy, who was standing in front of him without dodging, and a trace of anger flashed in his eyes. After all, Might Guy didn't take him seriously at all. Kisame also knows that close combat is his weakness, but being treated with contempt like this is unacceptable to anyone, let alone Kisame, who is a bit proud and arrogant. You rare beast! Get ready to be defeated by me. Clenching a fist on his waist, chakra was constantly condensing on Kisame's fist. The powerful energy has even wrapped Kisame's fist with a layer of wind, looking quite fierce. Kisame's taijutsu is very different from Might Guy's taijutsu. The taijutsu that Kisame is using at this moment should be called ninjutsu, which is to apply chakra to his own taijutsu, using chakra as the main application and taijutsu as an auxiliary means of combat. With the huge chakra, Kisame's fighting style without caring about the consumption of taijutsu has undoubtedly greatly increased the destructive power of Kisame's attack. Looking at Kisame who clenched his fist and attacked him, Might Guy's face was dignified, but he had no intention of dodging. The simplest way to understand the level of a person's taijutsu is to take a punch from that person. When this punch landed on his body, as a ninja who specializes in taijutsu, it was easy for him to distinguish his opponent's physical fitness and strength. Shark face, I'm waiting for you to defeat me. To be able to have a formidable opponent in life is to have a truly youthful life. Looking at the Kismet ghost shark, Might Guy opened his mouth and laughed out loud, revealing a row of sparkling white teeth. Hearing Might Guy's words, even though Kisame thought that he already knew Might Guy well enough, but he still couldn't help but have a big drop of cold sweat on his face. Sure enough, this guy wearing green tights is indeed a rare beast. What kind of environment can cultivate such a ninja? Thinking about Lenkuen Orochimaru, who also joined Akatsuki, and Itachi Uchiha, who used to be his teammate, his heart was full of all kinds of feelings, but his heart was completely frozen. Woodleaf Village in the Land of Fire? It's really a different place from the ninja world. If he had the chance, Kisame really hoped that he could settle down in Woodleaf Village for a few years, and feel how different this village is from the rest of the ninja world. Putting aside these idle thoughts, at this moment, Kisame's fist wrapped in chakra hit Might Guy's two forearms that were crossed in front of his chest. Obviously, it was just the collision of fist and forearm, but it was like a roaring sound of a waterfall hitting a rock. Even at the moment when Kisame's fist and Might Guy's arm intersected, a circle of airwaves appeared in the air because of the impact of the huge force. Might Guy underestimated the strength of Kisame after the fusion with Shark Bone. At the moment when he was hit, Might Guy's body was like a kite with a broken string, directly flying backward. After crashing into several trees and leaving a long trail of dust on the ground, Might Guy's body finally came to a stop. Suddenly, there was a sweet taste in his throat, and blood oozed out of Might Guy's mouth at this moment. Obviously, because of the impact of the huge force, Might Guy's internal organs also suffered a certain degree of damage. Although he suffered a certain degree of damage, Might Guy was not discouraged at this moment, because Might Guy had already roughly understood what kind of level Kisame was at this moment. At this moment, Kisame had indeed become different. If he didn't open the Hashiman Tonku, then in terms of fighting ability, he was indeed inferior to Kisame, but once he opened the Hashiman Tonku, then Kisame was simply not enough in front of him. Open the door. Gate of rest. Gate of life. Gate of pain. Open for me. Using the chakra in his body to constantly stimulate his body, Might Guy opened half of the Hashiman Tonku in almost an instant. The originally not-so-scary aura directly erupted from Might Guy's body at this moment. If Might Guy without opening the Hashiman Tonku was a kitten, then Might Guy after opening the Hashiman Tonku was a tiger coming down from the mountain. The proud azure beast of Woodleaf, this was what Might Guy had always called himself. Although Kisame felt that Might Guy was more of a rare beast than a beast, Might Guy who had truly entered the battle state was definitely an opponent that couldn't be underestimated. Hearing Might Guy's roar when he opened the Hashiman Tonku, Kisame, who had been standing in place after attacking Might Guy, couldn't help but be on guard. The muscles all over his body tightened. Kisame knew that the real battle between him and Mike Guy had just begun. Chapter 575. Ah! In the smoke and dust, Mike K's special roar appeared in Kisame's ears. Unlike the general ninja who specializes in assassination, Mike K is better at direct confrontation. So this roar is in line with Mike K's fighting style, to gain the upper hand by a show of strength. At the same time Mike K roared, the thick smoke was like a fragile soap bubble, it was directly shaken and dispersed. Mike K's body, which was wearing a green tights, was also burning with green chakra flame. The green chakra flame slowly burned on Mike K's body. Coupled with Mike K's white eyes and red skin, he looked full of violent power. Like a flying cannonball, Mike K rushed straight towards Kisame. Looking at Mike K, who seemed to be unscathed, rushing towards him, Kisame knew that now was not the time to be arrogant, and immediately began to form hand seals. Water release, water explosion shockwave. Finally, Kisame used his best water release ninjutsu. He opened his mouth, and a huge stream of water rushed out of his mouth in an unnatural way. The huge amount of water directly submerged the forest where Kisame and Mike K were fighting. If it weren't for the fear of attracting Naruto and Killer Bee, Kisame could have used ninjutsu twice the scale of his current ninjutsu. Looking at the huge wave that was 10 meters tall rushing towards him, Michael Kai did not dodge. His body did not stop, but he kicked his right leg up. Woodleaf Vajra Battle Axe Kick. Because of opening the Hashiman Tonku, the chakra flame that was constantly produced from his body gathered towards his raised right leg under Mike K's control. The green chakra flame burned on Mike K's right leg, gradually forming the shape of an axe. Break for me. When Mike K shouted the last word, the huge wave had already arrived in front of Mike K. Mike K raised his right leg high and directly swung it down. The right leg that was burning with chakra flame in the shape of a battle axe directly chopped down on the wave. The water flow is soft as if it has no substance. All attacks that hit the water will slowly be eliminated. But at this moment, the 10-meter-high wave was directly split in half by Mike K's kick like tofu. Moreover, there seemed to be wisps of smoke drifting out from the section where the waves were split apart due to the speed and strength of the attack being too fast and powerful. Although the wave was split, Mike K's battle axe kick didn't lose its power. After using his kick to cut off the water waves, the force generated by the kick was like a transparent blade, rushing towards the Kisame ghost shark. Chi! The sound of the chakra energy cutting through the air was very ear-piercing. Because Kismet ghost shark had fused with his shark muscles, he seemed to have gained some of the sharp senses of a beast. The sense of crisis that came from his heart made Kismet Ghost Shark very clear that he couldn't take Mike K's attack head-on. Kismet Ghost Shark bit his thumb and quickly made a hand gesture. Psychic Technique, Thousand Eating Shark. Summoned by Kismet Ghost Shark, sharks appeared in the lake water that flooded the forest. Under Kismet Ghost Shark's control, all the sharks came to the path of the chakra energy attack. They swung their tails and leaped high from the water, directly blocking the chakra energy with their bodies. Compared to the sharp strength chi blade, the shark's pure flesh and blood body was still not enough to look at. But Kismet Ghost Shark had summoned nearly 1,000 sharks. As the sharks appeared in front of the chakra energy blade, the chakra energy blade gradually weakened because these sharks used their bodies to block it. When the chakra energy blade arrived in front of Kismet Ghost Shark, it only had the appearance but no power. Kismet Ghost Shark gently waved his arm and directly met the chakra energy blade. Like brushing away a layer of dust, the chakra energy blade disappeared in the air. Looking at the nearly 1,000 sharks summoned by the Kismet Ghost Shark to defend against the powerful chi attacks, only 40 to 50 of them were left. Sharks were creatures that would go crazy after being stimulated by the smell of blood. Over 900 sharks were cut in half by the chakra energy. The blood from the dead sharks even dyed the lake red. The sharks that survived in the water were all roaming in the lake, looking a little irritable. Under the guidance of the Kismet ghost shark, the remaining 40 to 50 sharks all locked their attacks on Mike K, who had been dashing towards the Kismet ghost shark all this time. Water release, water shark bullet technique, change. Kismet ghost shark quickly formed a hand seal, then pressed his hand on the water surface. Huge chakra energy kept rushing into the water. These chakra energy streams wrapped around the remaining sharks. At this moment, these ordinary sharks seemed to be covered with a layer of armor molded by water. They directly turned from a normal 2-meter-long shark to a 5-meter-long shark. After adapting to the water flow that suddenly appeared on their bodies, the sharks seemed to realize that their bodies had been strengthened by a greater power. The group of sharks, who were a little hesitant because of Mike K's powerful aura, finally overcame their instinctive fear and rushed towards Mike K. Mike K was running on the water surface at an extremely fast speed. Looking at the calm water surface, he couldn't help but feel a sense of crisis. That hair-raising feeling made Mike K immediately slow down his speed. He stepped on the water surface forcefully, and his body slid sideways on the water surface. Just as Mike K's body slid sideways, 3 huge sharks wrapped in water shark bombs appeared where Mike K originally was, seemingly wanting to bite Mike K, who was still there just a moment ago. Chapter 576. Seeing the huge shark wrapped in the water shark bullet, Mike K's eyes not only showed no fear, but instead flashed with a glimmer of excitement. Shark face, you're really a formidable opponent second only to Kakashi. That's it, that's it. Let the blood flowing in my body, let all the thoughts in my mind turn into a burning flame. Youth is to release the hot blood in my body, youth is to fight with all my strength. In addition to being called the proud azure beast of Woodleaf, Mike K also had another name, Crazy K. When fighting, Mike K would always be unavoidably excited. But such excitement did not affect Mike K's fighting ability at all. Instead, it greatly improved Mike K's battle strength. The 5th gate, Gate of Limit. Open. Clenching his hands into fists, Mike K endured the pain on his body and shouted towards the sky. How long has it been? He didn't fight with all his might like now. At this moment, Mike Guy no longer had any scruples. All he had was a thirst for victory. He was like a traveler who was struggling to survive in the desert. For Mike Guy, defeating the enemy and winning was the sweet spring that sustained his life. After opening the 5th gate, Mike K's physical fitness had greatly improved. While his physical fitness had improved, Mike K's speed had also become beyond common sense. Michael K squatted down a little, and after a short period of charging, he started to move. Bang! A huge airwave was directly generated behind Mike K. Such a phenomenon was called sonic boom. It was a natural phenomenon that occurred when the speed of an object exceeded the speed of sound transmission. In layman's terms, because the speed was too fast, the resulting force began to compress the air, causing the air to explode after being compressed. Although Kisame tried his best to capture the direction of Mike K's movement with his eyes, Mike K's speed at the moment had completely exceeded the speed of the shark wrapped in the water shark bullet. After all, maintaining the water shark bullet was actually a burden for Kisame. Since he could no longer use this ninjutsu to attack or even restrain Mike K, maintaining this ninjutsu was a waste of his chakra. Water release, water shark bullet jutsu, change. The original B-class water shark bullet jutsu, after Kisame used chakra without caring about the consumption, now its power was not inferior to an S-class ninjutsu. Balls of water wrapped in chakra floated up from the water surface. Under the control of chakra, they turned into shuttles and rotated constantly. Like spinning armor-piercing bullets, these water fangs flew towards the places where Ghost Shark had predicted Mike K would pass by. Originally, it was only a single attack, but now, Kisame Ghost Shark had turned it into an AoE attack. Covering the surface of the water one after another, Kisame constantly used ninjutsu to reduce Might Guy's range of action. Although at this moment, Might Guy's speed indeed made Kisame unable to hit him no matter what kind of ninjutsu he used, but the range of Might Guy's movement was limited. Now, Kisame used his ninjutsu to continuously restrict Might Guy's movement range to a certain extent. The effect was indeed outstanding. Unless Might Guy wanted to break through Kisame's blockade regardless of the damage to his body, he could only passively take a beating. Kisame was indeed worried that if he and Might Guy fought too much, Naruto and Killer Bee would catch up with him and attack him from both sides. But for Might K, he was also very worried about time. Although the 8 inner hidden gates were powerful, the burden on the human body was too heavy. For him, the 8 inner hidden gates could only be regarded as a trump card, not a means that he could use frequently. At this moment, after fighting with Kisame for a while, Might Guy could already feel that his body was beginning to be overwhelmed. He could even vaguely hear a whining sound coming from the depths of his body. I can't be suppressed by Kisame like this. Might Guy only had such a thought in his mind. After fighting for such a long time, he didn't even leave any scars on Kisame's body. Such a battle could almost be said to be fruitless, and Might Guy couldn't bear such a battle. Pressing his thumb on his body, Might Guy poured his chakra into his fingertips. In this way, Might Guy once again opened the next gate of the 8 inner hidden gates. The 6th gate, Gate of View. Open. When opening the Gate of View, Might Guy didn't roar as loudly as before. Instead, he said such words in a low and hoarse voice. When Might K hid all his rage in the bottom of his heart, his low voice sounded like that of a god who was judging the world. His eyes that had completely turned white stared straight at Kisame who was standing behind the water splashed by the water. Obviously, there was no trace of emotion on his face, but Kisame's heart couldn't help but feel a chill that was difficult to dispel. Stepping on the water with his feet, Might Guy's body directly jumped high into the air. Under normal circumstances, ninjas avoid floating in the air. After all, in the state of having no leverage in the air, their body almost becomes a target. But at this moment, Might Guy obviously had a deep meaning, so he floated his body in the air. While floating in the air, Might Guy's body began to exude a powerful aura. Even his originally ridiculous watermelon had started to move without wind under the influence of the powerful aura produced by Might Guy, showing a powerful power. In the blink of an eye, Michael K's arms and legs became illusory. This was a phenomenon produced when Might Guy punched and kicked at a very high speed. Because his arms and legs were constantly waving, the friction in the air caused a cluster of orange flames to appear out of thin air, wrapping Might Guy's body. This move is Morning Phoenix. Chapter 577. Might Guy's body was wrapped in flames. Due to the constant movement of his arms and legs, his body was slowly floating in the air without any signs of sagging. Looking at Might Guy's body wrapped in flames, Kisame Ghost Shark's eyes flashed with a trace of graveness and doubt. Might Guy is one of the few famous ninjas of Woodleaf, and there is actually a lot of information about him in the ninja world. And the most important thing about this information circulating in the ninja world is that Might Guy, as a ninja, doesn't use any ninjutsu, and the amount of chakra in his body is very small. He has never used any ninjutsu or genjutsu. Kisame believed this before, but at this moment, Might Guy's body was shrouded in flames. If he wanted to find a reasonable explanation, it could only be fire release ninjutsu. Following common sense, Kisame increased the output of his chakra. The dried persimmon ghost shark had been using the water tooth bullets to seal off Might Guy's range of movement. Now, under the dried persimmon ghost shark's control, the water tooth bullets merged together. Making a few more hand seals, Kisame completed a ninjutsu derived from the water fang jutsu. Water style, giant water tooth. Originally, the water tooth bullets were formed from water to form a shuttle that was about 20 to 30 centimeters long to attack the enemy. Instead of water tooth, it was more like a water shuttle. But now, under the control of the Kismet ghost shark, these water streams were condensing together, forming a huge shark mouth shape. Even the tall and sturdy body of the Kismet ghost shark seemed a little tiny in front of it. After locking onto Might Guy's position, Kisame adjusted the attacking direction of the giant water tooth with his chakra, then gave a loud growl. Go! Following the dried persimmon ghost shark's roar, its huge shark teeth directly rushed towards Might Guy. Floating in the air, Might Guy couldn't help but see the extraordinarily powerful giant water tooth, which was being controlled by Kisame ghost shark, rushing towards him. However, at the moment, Might Guy didn't feel any threat at all. Let it burn. My body, my blood, my youth, ah. Might Guy's legs exerted force, and a sonic boom was produced behind him. His body seemed to be stepping on the ground as he rushed towards the direction of the giant water tooth. At this moment, Kisame, Jizuya attack, and Might Guy were in a straight line. Either Might Guy would be swallowed by Jizuya attack and Kisame would win, or Might Guy would break Jizuya attack and attack Kisame, who would be unable to move due to the continuous chakra output from Jizuya attack. Life and death, victory and defeat would be decided in this move. Rare beast, go to hell. Shark face, let me defeat you. Although there was a huge water ninjutsu between Might Guy and Kisame, whether it was Might Guy or Kisame, at this moment, their gazes directly penetrated the giant water tooth and fell on each other's body. Kisame and Might Guy roared at the same time. Whether it was the speed of Might Guy's punches and kicks or the output of chakra, both of them had reached the peak state. At this moment, Kisame didn't care whether he could return to Akatsuki with so many Hachibi chakra, or whether he would be caught by Naruto and Killer Bee, and then face the risk of being defeated. At this moment, what Kisame wanted was only victory. After defeating Might Guy, he would get the taste of victory that would make him infinitely satisfied. Because he attacked from above, plus the thrust brought by the previous kick, Might Guy's body fell very fast. Almost in the blink of an eye, Might Guy's figure directly rushed into the huge shark mouth of giant water tooth. Seeing Might Guy directly rushed into his ninjutsu, Kisame didn't hesitate to increase the power of chakra above his limit. The huge shark mouth of giant water tooth directly closed, and directly bit Might Guy who rushed in. Through the not-so-transparent water, it was obvious that Might Guy's body was constantly being suppressed by the water pressure from all directions. But Might Guy didn't seem to have lost the ability to fight. The best proof of this point was that the flame burning on Might Guy's body didn't show any sign of extinguishing at this moment. With the passage of time, the orange flame on Might Guy's body didn't get extinguished by the water like ordinary flames, instead, it became more and more fierce. The water wasn't so transparent to begin with. At this moment, it became completely impossible to see the internal situation. Only some white things began to spread from the place where Might Guy was just now to all directions. Gradually, the giant water fang's tightly shut shark mouth began to change shape. Bubbles began to appear on the surface of the giant water tooth. It felt like the giant water tooth was being boiled. No. It didn't feel like it. At this moment, giant water tooth was really boiling. The shape of giant water tooth's shark mouth became more and more exaggerated. In the end, it completely turned into a shapeless, constantly boiling, and completely white water ball. Ah! Might Guy's almost iconic strange roar directly rushed out of the water ball and directly passed into Kisame's ears. Originally, Kisame thought that Might Guy would lose the ability to fight because of the lack of oxygen after being trapped in the water ball. As long as Might Guy didn't come out of the water ball, Kisame had a chance to win. But at this moment, after hearing Might Guy's roar, Kisame 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 knew that his expectation was actually a failure. Water was mainly composed of hydrogen and oxygen. When heated to a certain extent, it would decompose into hydrogen and oxygen was an important gas to ignite flames. After being enveloped by the giant water tooth, Might Guy maintained a high speed of movement with his arms and legs to form a vacuum space, allowing the flames on his body to burn for a short period of time. The powerful heat of the flames also constantly vaporized the water around Might Guy. The vaporized water also fed the flames. After a series of chain reactions, the flames wrapped around Might Guy's body became more and more turbulent. If one had to find an adjective, perhaps there were only 4 words: Nirvana rebirth. Chapter 578. Pa. Because of the strong air pressure inside his body, the huge water ball wrapped in chakra was like a balloon meeting a sharp object and directly exploded. The moment the water ball exploded, a large flame burst out from it. The miraculous scene of water and fire merging appeared in front of the Kismet ghost shark and Mike K. However, neither of them were in the mood to appreciate such a miraculous scene. The shark-like eyes of the Kismet ghost shark were now filled with an orange glow. This wasn't because the Kismet ghost shark's eyes were bloodshot or something else. Instead, it was because a ball of flame was rushing towards the Kismet ghost shark. The flame was very fast, and Kismet ghost shark's body was temporarily paralyzed because of the chakra that exceeded his limit. There was no way for him to dodge this flame. The orange flame directly hit the Kismet ghost shark's body. The burning sensation was transmitted directly to the Kismet ghost shark's brain. Perhaps it was because its body had fused with the shark's flesh, the Kismet ghost shark's sense of pain had become much sharper. Its steel-like wool was completely unable to resist the burning sensation coming from its skin. Ah! A mournful cry came out of Kismet ghost shark's mouth, but such a cry was not enough to stop Might Guy's action. Like a ghost, Might Guy's figure appeared directly in front of Kismet ghost shark. Without the slightest hesitation, Might Guy clenched his hand into a fist, and after a short period of power, he directly punched Kismet ghost shark's abdomen with his fist. Its dark blue, shark-like skin couldn't do any harm to Might K's powerful fist at all. Like a sharp scalpel, Might K's fist directly pierced into the Kisan ghost shark's abdomen. Because his internal organs were injured, Kismet ghost shark's shark-like face directly twitched, and his mouth with sharp teeth spat out a large mouthful of blood. The hot blood directly poured on Might Guy's arm that was deeply stabbed into Kismet ghost shark's abdomen. The chakra flame that appeared on Might Guy's body because of the opening of the 8 inner hidden gates slowly extinguished at this moment. The powerful aura emanating from Might Guy's body disappeared without a trace the moment the chakra flames disappeared. The floating hair, the white eyeballs, and the red skin all over his body also disappeared in an instant. Might Guy looked at Kismet ghost shark that he had attacked, and his eyes flashed with deep fatigue. He forcefully pulled out his hand from Kismet ghost shark's abdomen. Kismet ghost shark's body, which had become somewhat weak due to the injury, directly fell to the ground. The moment Kismet ghost shark fell to the ground, the shark's muscles and Kismet ghost shark separated. The size of the shark's muscles seemed to have become slightly smaller due to the consumption of a large amount of chakra, and the body of Kismet ghost shark at this moment exuded a very unnatural pale color, without even a trace of blood. In the end, Might Guy still held back. After all, although the two sides had spoken a lot of harsh words during the battle, Might Guy had never said that he would kill Kismet ghost shark from the beginning to the end of the battle. People need close friends in their life, but they also need strong enemies. Although Might Guy has always said that Hatake Kakashi is his lifelong enemy, but after all, Might Guy and Hatake Kakashi are ninjas from the same ninja village. To a large extent, Might Guy and Hatake Kakashi can be said to be close friends who compete with each other and promote each other. Kismet ghost shark is different. Kismet ghost shark is a member of Akatsuki, which is completely hostile to Woodleaf Village. From the moment they met Kismet Ghost Shark, Might Guy and Kismet Ghost Shark were destined to be enemies. As the friction between Akatsuki and Konoha increased, Might Guy and Kisame appeared again and again, as if it was their destiny. Fighting is the best way to understand a person. So although Kismet Ghost Shark and Might Guy didn't say it clearly, but there is a faint feeling of mutual appreciation between them. At the moment when Might Guy was accumulating his power while attacking Kisame, Might Guy kept reminding himself that he must not hold back, he must not hold back. However, when his fist was about to land on Kisame's body, his fist, which was originally aimed at Kisame's heart, involuntarily moved towards Kisame's waist and abdomen. Intentionally or unintentionally, Might Guy's fist even avoided the fatal part of his abdomen. Why don't you kill me? At this moment, although Kismet Ghost Shark's eyes had become slightly lifeless, but he still tried to look at Might Guy, as if he wanted to see more clearly the powerful man who defeated him. Hearing Kismet Ghost Shark's question, Might Guy's eyes also became absent-minded. Because Might Guy actually didn't know why he spared Kismet Ghost Shark's life, all of this seems to be his heart telling him that he didn't want Kismet Ghost Shark to die like this. Seeing the obvious lifeless struggle in Might Guy's eyes, Kisame Ghost Shark, who was lying on the ground, couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. Unlike the mocking smile he made before, at this moment, Kismet Ghost Shark's smile revealed infinite regret and envy. Konoha Village. Sure enough, they have cultivated a group of naive fools. Obviously such naivety is enough to be fatal in the man-eat-man ninja world, but why can't I help but feel a bit envious when I see the naivety in your heart? Kismet Ghost Shark suddenly thought of his former teammate Itachi Uchiha and the current actual leader of Akatsuki organization Uchiha Obito, and his eyes gently slid over Might Guy's body. Then Kismet Ghost Shark couldn't help but say, if I was also born in Woodleaf Village, how good would it be, you and I would definitely become best friends. Chapter 579. Standing in front of Kismet Ghost Shark, Might K looked at Kismet Ghost Shark's face and listened to him murmuring. At the same time, the struggling look in Might K's eyes grew clearer. Disregarding the hostile relationship between the Kismet Ghost Shark and himself, Might Guy squatted down in front of the Kismet Ghost Shark and said, instead of being so envious, why don't you come back to Woodleaf with me? As long as you tell us everything, I believe that neither Hokage-sama nor anyone else will make things difficult for you. Under my care, even if you don't become a ninja, you can live a good life in Woodleaf. In fact, everything is still not too late, you can. Might K, who had always been extremely careless, was now earnestly preaching to his enemy, the Kismet Ghost Shark. Moreover, judging from Might K's eyes that were brimming with concern, it was clear that Might K truly hoped that Shi Yen could help the Kismet Ghost Shark, or even spare its life. The Kismet Ghost Shark didn't interrupt Might K, but Might K didn't say anything after half of his sentence. Michael K wasn't a stupid person. In fact, in many cases, Michael K was intelligent and full of his own style. When Might Guy first persuaded Kisame, it was indeed out of his sincerity, but the more he talked, the more he realized how unrealistic his promise to Kisame was. Although he didn't get involved in politics, Might Guy was one of Woodleaf's top jonin after all. Many of Woodleaf's dark side were exposed in front of Might Guy. If he really brought the dried persimmon ghost shark back alive, what kind of treatment would that dried persimmon ghost shark receive? Although he didn't directly see Woodleaf's interrogation department and the various interrogation methods of Woodleaf's Umbu, Might Guy still heard a lot of information from Kakashi, who had experience in the Umbu. To be honest, even if Kisame has the strength of a Kage level or even higher, once he falls into the hands of Woodleaf's interrogation department and Woodleaf's Umbu, being able to keep his mind is already the best state for him. One must know that whether it is Woodleaf's interrogation department or Woodleaf's Umbu, there are many Yamanaka clansmen who are proficient in spiritual manipulation and exploration. Forcibly invading the enemy's brain and obtaining information from their memories is the Yamanaka clan's specialty, and it is also the ultimate method of the Umbu and the Woodleaf's Umbu. So, you are really naive. Looking at Mike Guy, who didn't say anything, Kisame Ghost Shark grinned widely. He didn't feel any sadness at the end of the road. Instead, he felt a different sense of relief. I'm a ninja from the Mist Village. From childhood to adulthood, my life was full of betrayal and killing each other. Every friend of mine could become an enemy who wants to kill me in the next moment. Although when I grew up, I understood that this kind of situation actually only exists in the Mist Village. But as I came into contact with more and more people, I found that there is no difference between the cruelty of the Mist Village and the cruelty of the ninja world. Everyone can still put you to death, and even compared to the Mist Village, there are countless ways to kill people in the ninja world. When I realized this, a part of my heart had already collapsed. At that time, I met the current leader of the Akatsuki. He didn't hide anything and told me about his plan. It's funny to say that I'm not the strongest person in the Akatsuki, but I'm the one who is closest to the biggest plan of the Akatsuki. Kisame's face showed a touch of powerlessness, and then he said to Mike Guy, although I have been talking about my yearning for Konoha, in fact, you and I both know that Konoha's so-called Pearl of the Shinobi world is actually just a means to boast. Woodleaf is no less dirty and dark than any other place. I'm not only disappointed in the Mist Village, the ninja world, and the ninja world, I'm disappointed in the whole world. I'm not a selfless person, and I don't want to be a messenger of justice to protect the lives of others. I'm an extremely selfish egoist. Since the world is so disgusting to me, and an opportunity to change the whole world is in front of me, then I will naturally give it a try. I don't care what kind of scene it will be in the infinite Tsukuyomi world. I'm just disappointed in the current ninja world. It's quite interesting to help the ninja world change its face. You don't have to say so much, and you don't have to worry about it. In fact, your choice now is very simple: either kill me here, or take me to the Woodleaf Interrogation Department or Woodleaf Umbu so that they can get more information from my brain. The Kismet Ghost Shark raised his head and exposed his neck to Mike K. He said to Mike K fearlessly, and even somewhat expectantly, "Don't worry. I'll give you such an opportunity, whether you kill me or take me back to the Woodleaf, it's all up to you." Looking at Kisame, who completely gave up resistance in front of him, Mike Guy's iron-blooded heart, which was tempered in his long ninja career, couldn't help but loosen. He's not Kisame, and he hasn't experienced what Kisame has experienced. However, Mike Guy could still taste the 3 flavors from the dried persimmon ghost shark's words, which sounded like his last words. If he is really from the perspective of a Woodleaf ninja, bringing Kisame back to the Woodleaf can undoubtedly bring more useful information to the Woodleaf. But as a warrior, in the face of such an enemy, sending him to the Woodleaf Interrogation Department or Umbu is a great disrespect and humiliation to him. At this moment, Mike Guy showed a rare hesitation. If this situation must be described, it's a conflict between Mike Guy's warrior heart and his sense of responsibility as a ninja. Just when Mike Guy was hesitating, 2 huge chakras suddenly came from afar. Almost in an instant, the hesitation in Mike Guy's heart directly disappeared. Without any hesitation, he hacked his palm onto the Kismet Ghost Shark's neck like a knife. In an instant, a tremendous force crushed the Kismet Ghost Shark's throat, then he kicked the Kismet Ghost Shark, who was lying on the ground. The lifeless body of Kisame fell directly into the lake created by Kisame's water release and disappeared without a trace. Then, Mike K turned his eyes towards the place where the 2 huge chakras were emitted. Chapter 580. Mike K? Mr. Bushy Eyebrows? When Naruto and Killer Bee saw that the Sharingan had transformed into Kisame, they immediately sped up and wanted to catch up with the Kisame to figure out what was going on. However, after the Kisame regained its consciousness and took control of its body, it immediately escaped into the depths of the forest. Naruto, who had mastered the Nine Tails chakra mode, could actually use this new power to sense any familiar chakra source, but after all, he had just mastered this power, so he was not very familiar with it. Although the Nine Tails in Naruto's body had reached an agreement with Naruto, to a large extent, the Nine Tails was still observing Naruto and would not give too much help to Naruto. The Kismet ghost shark's soaring body structure and its deliberately suppressed chakra aura made it difficult for Naruto to find its whereabouts. Under the influence of these various factors, Naruto and Killer Bee could not catch up with the fleeing Kismet ghost shark. After Naruto and Killer Bee tracked the Kismet ghost shark for a long time, Naruto, who had finally entered the Nine Tails chakra mode, sensed a huge chakra wave coming from a forest a little far away from him. Naruto and Killer Bee finally realized that they had been deliberately misled by the Kismet ghost shark. Although they were very surprised that the seemingly careless Kismet ghost shark would use such a method to mislead them, what was done could not be undone. No matter how much they regretted it, it was meaningless. Although his reaction was a little slow, Naruto could clearly sense a very familiar aura in the place where the huge chakra burst out. After exchanging a glance with Killer Bee, Naruto and Killer Bee immediately rushed towards the place where the huge chakra burst out. Because of the distance, although Killer Bee and Naruto had pushed their speed to the extreme, it still took a certain amount of time to reach the place where the battle took place. To Naruto and Killer Bee's surprise, the battle with such a powerful chakra did not end quickly. On the contrary, it became more and more intense. Finally, after a rapid trek, Naruto and Killer Bee finally came out of the dense forest and saw Mike K leaning against a tree, looking very tired. Naruto came to Mike K's side and helped the pale-looking Mike K up. Naruto and Mike K's direct disciple Lee Luoku were very familiar with each other. Naturally, he had seen Lee in a weakened state after using the 8 gates. Although the current Mike Guy was different from Li Shaoli when he left the 8 inner hidden gates, he wasn't too far away from it. Teacher thick eyebrows. Where is this? Naruto just opened his mouth to ask Mike Guy what happened here. Killer Bee, who just separated from Naruto to explore the surroundings, took the lead and said to Naruto, "That's right. Yo, the water here is very strange, it seems to be a kind of water escape. Shark face, strong water escape. The one fighting here is Shark face, oh yeah." Hearing Killer Bee's strange tone, Mike K, who was helped up by Naruto, couldn't help but frown. "It's Kisan Ghost Shark." Mike K, who has always been very bad at remembering other people's names, actually said the name of Kisan Ghost Shark directly at this moment. This kind of situation is very rare for people who are familiar with Mike K. But neither Naruto nor Killer Bee knew that Mike K had such a characteristic, so they didn't think much of it. "I came here to check on Naruto's training under the order of the 4th Hokage Wave Wind Watergate. On the way here, I encountered Kisan Ghost Shark. Kisan Ghost Shark suddenly attacked me. In self-defense, a fight broke out between me and Kisan Ghost Shark." With that said, Mike Guy raised his slightly weak arm and pointed at Naruto and Shibito. The surrounding environment was severely damaged. "Everything here is proof of my battle with Kisan Ghost Shark. In the battle, because I was at a disadvantage, I used a powerful forbidden technique to kill Kisan Ghost Shark here. However, after using the forbidden technique, my body will enter a period of weakness. Therefore, the corpse of the Kismet ghost shark was swept into this lake that he created himself. In order to fight with me, Kisan Ghost Shark summoned a lot of sharks in this lake. Although Kisan Ghost Shark is dead now, there are still shark summoning beasts that haven't exhausted chakra swimming in it. Now I can't guarantee whether Kisan Ghost Shark's body is intact or not. Under normal circumstances, all conflicts that occur in the process of a ninja's mission should be written in a report and directly handed to their ninja village after the mission, and it is not allowed to be disclosed to anyone. But now, Mike K directly told Naruto and Killer Bee about his battle. Such behavior is actually not allowed, but Mike K's temperament is simply too unpredictable for people in the ninja world, and Naruto and Killer Bee are actually people who don't care about trifles, so naturally, they didn't question Mike K's words. After handing over Mike K to Killer Bee, Naruto slowly walked to the side of the lake that Kisan Ghost Shark created with his water release. The golden chakra flame that had been extinguished on Naruto's body burned again at this moment. Naruto slowly stretched out his right hand in front of himself and opened his palm. The golden chakra flame was constantly condensing in it. Gradually, a golden flame lotus with red color appeared directly in Naruto's palm. Carefully observing the lake with his eyes and constantly feeling the faint chakra aura from Kisan Ghost Shark's lifeless body in the lake, Naruto gently raised his palm, and the flame lotus fell directly into the lake. Similar to the method Mike K used to deal with Kisan Ghost Shark, Naruto used fire to restrain the water release at this moment. The flame lotus that Naruto threw out at this moment was actually a kind of compression of the Nine Tails chakra, but the Nine Tails chakra itself was full of blazing aura, so it was not worth mentioning to evaporate some water. The moment the flame lotus fell into the lake, the whole lake began to evaporate rapidly. Chapter 581. Although it's just a small flame that's not even as big as a fist, the huge amount of heat it contains is undoubtedly revealed in the confrontation with the water. The moment the yellow flame lotus with a tinge of red fell into the lake, the entire lake began to vaporize rapidly. However, after the water was vaporized into mist, it instantly disappeared under the attack of the huge heat, just like ice and snow meeting the scorching sun. Such a miraculous thing appeared directly in front of Mike Guy. Mike Guy has been a ninja in the ninja world for so many years. Naturally, he has seen a lot of powerful ninjas. Even the most proficient ninja in the ninja world, the Uchiha clan, is a member of Woodleaf. But even though he has seen so many powerful ninjas, the fire release they used is still within the scope of Mike Guy's understanding. Looking at the flame lotus that Naruto used just now, those powerful fire release ninjutsu in the eyes of Mike Guy are as small as the small flame in the stove when cooking. In the blink of an eye, the lake that originally didn't look small has turned into a huge pit at this moment, and even the ground at the bottom of the lake has cracked inch by inch under the heat of the flame lotus that Naruto just used. Standing on the edge of the pit, Naruto jumped directly to the bottom of the lake. Step by step, he walked on the cracked ground. At the feet of Naruto, there are shark corpses that have lost their lives because of the high temperature of the flame lotus, but Naruto didn't care about these. Instead, he continued to walk towards the center of the cracked ground. The closer he got to the center of the land, the more shark corpses there are. In the middle of these shark carcasses, there was a carcass that had lost its head and limbs. Its internal organs spilled out and flowed all over the place. Although he can't immediately confirm his identity with a little bluish skin, Naruto knows that this person is Kisame. After all, as a Woodleaf ninja, Naruto still trusts Mike Guy, who has always been very loyal and honest. Originally, Naruto thought about whether he could find a relatively intact corpse of Kisame and bring it back to the Woodleaf so that the Yamanaka clan can read some information from the brain of Kisame, but now that the corpse of Kisame has been gnawed by those sharks, Naruto's idea of obtaining information from the corpse of Kisame has faded a lot. In fact, Kisame and Naruto are quite related. When Naruto was still weak, Kisame and Itachi Uchiha appeared in front of Naruto more than once, attacking Naruto, and Jiraiya wanted to capture the Nine Tails. Although he didn't say it, in fact, Kisame was a shadow in Naruto's heart. Such an existence that had threatened his life countless times has now become so miserable. Naruto didn't know what kind of emotion was in his heart. Was it relief or regret? Naruto couldn't explain it now. Alas, Naruto looked at the miserable Kisame in front of him, and after a long sigh, the chakra flame on his body suddenly surged. A giant chakra hand was directly produced behind Naruto. The giant hand slightly turned into a hook and drew a line on the ground, and a huge pit directly appeared on the ground. Once again condensing a smaller chakra hand behind him, Naruto directly put the remains of Kisame on the ground and the several sharks lying on the ground beside it into the pit. Kisame, although there have been many conflicts between you and me, I have to say that you are still a respectable powerhouse. I can't bear to see your body left here to be battered by the wind and rain, and to be pecked by the birds, so I can only build a simple tomb for you. I hope that you won't go astray in the other world and help the evildoers do evil. After saying that, Naruto controlled the larger chakra hand to come to the pit where he had just placed the remains of Kisame, and removed the chakra hand. The soil that was originally in the giant hand directly fell down, burying the remains of Kisame and the several sharks. After doing all this, Naruto jumped directly, flew high, and came to the side of Killer Bee and Might Guy. Sorry for making you wait for so long. Looking at Killer Bee and Might Guy, Naruto said to them apologetically. But Killer Bee and Might Guy directly shook their heads, indicating that Naruto didn't mind. Might Guy said to Naruto with a look of emotion on his face. Although we have different standpoints, I have to say that Kisame is indeed a respectable opponent. You did the right thing. Respecting the opponent is also respecting yourself. Sure enough, this is youth. Killer Bee standing on the side didn't say anything, but from his expression, he agreed with Might Guy's words. Now for Naruto and the others, time was very tight. After all, the battle was imminent. No one could guarantee that during the period when Kisame left the sight of Naruto and was met by Might Guy, or even when he faked his death and hid in the shark skin, he didn't pass on any important information. Yo, I'll go back to Kumo Shinobu village first and pass on Sharkface's message. You guys go back to Woodleaf and actively prepare for war. The war is about to break out, we must seek victory. Oh yeah, Killer Bee was an impatient person. After saying his proposal to Naruto and Might Guy, he didn't wait for Naruto and Might Guy's response. He directly reached out and picked up the shark's skin that had been rubbing against his feet like a spoiled child. He jumped up a tree and disappeared after a few jumps. Although Killer Bee didn't ask for Naruto and Might Guy's opinion at this moment and directly left, for Naruto and Might Guy, such a proposal was actually workable. After all, Naruto and Killer Bee came to the land of lightning to control the 9 tails in his body. Now that their goal was achieved, there was naturally no reason to stay here. It was time to return to Woodleaf. For some reason, Naruto always had a feeling in his heart that the war was getting closer and closer. Chapter 582. In the headquarters of Blood-Robed Pavilion, Nangongja stood at the door of a room and waited. Nangongja has always maintained a very calm state, except in front of his family and people who were very close to him. But at this moment, in front of Nangongja, the Altar Lord of 5 Elements Altar, including Mashiro, Nangongja's hand couldn't help but stroke the sword in his hand. Not only Nangongja, in fact, everyone present, from the old man Aoki to the youngest Mashiro, was actually quite nervous, because everyone was waiting for the key to Blood-Robed Pavilion's breakthrough. A few days ago, Uchiha Sasuke and his father Uchiha Fugaku were invited to the headquarters of Blood-Robed Pavilion by Nangongja. The reason for inviting them was naturally not to take them to observe the Blood-Robed Pavilion, but to discuss with them before, the most powerful eye recorded in Uchiha clan's records, Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, reappear in the world. Nangongja summoned almost all the disciples of Aoki Altar, who were most proficient in organ transplantation, to the headquarters of Blood-Robed Pavilion. The only reason for all these disciples to come back was that Nangongja hoped to improve the success rate of such eye transplantation. Today is the day when Uchiha Sasuke will receive the eye transplant. I hope everything goes well. Nangongja gently closed his eyes, his hand still involuntarily stroking the slightly rough hilt of the sword in his hand, and silently said such a sentence in his heart. In the battle of the Fourth Shinobi World War, blood-robed pavilion under the leadership of Nangongzhi did not join the Akatsuki or any of the 5 great shinobi villages. Although it's not clear what kind of disadvantages such a choice will bring, blood-robed pavilion avoided the situation of participating in the battle and suffering losses. But blood-robed pavilion is different from ordinary forces. Blood-robed pavilion is second only to the 5 great shinobi villages, and to a certain extent, it can even compete with the Akatsuki that hasn't completely exposed its cards. The more powerful the force, the more scruples it will have. Akatsuki itself is hostile to blood-robed pavilion. After all, Akatsuki wanted to annex blood-robed pavilion before. Because of various circumstances, Nangongzhi didn't think that joining the 5 great shinobi villages was a good choice for blood-robed pavilion. Therefore, Uchiha Sasuke, the most powerful eye in the shinobi world, besides Rinnegan, the Sharingan. After all, the Sharingan, the most powerful eye is the Sharingan. Even the current actual leader of Akatsuki, who calls himself Uchiha Madara, actually only has Manjikyu Sharingan. If he can control Uchiha Sasuke, who has eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, in his hands, it is actually equivalent to controlling a big killing weapon. So, whether Sasuke's eye transplant is successful or not, in fact, it represents the most important gear of Nangongzhi's plans. Creak. The sound of the wooden door being opened was so clear that it was transmitted to everyone's ears. One by one, the disciples of blood-robed pavilion, wearing white clothes, came out of the room one after another. Although they were wearing masks on their faces, Nangongzhi could still feel the involuntary joy from them. It seems that it's a success. His heart, which had been hanging in the air, finally calmed down, and his hand that was constantly groping for the sword's hilt also slowly relaxed at this moment. No matter what kind of new abilities Uchiha Sasuke's eyes obtained after receiving the Sharingan transplant, Sasuke's original Katan, Kagutsuchi, Amaterasu, and Susanoo abilities will definitely be greatly improved. Unlimited eye power and more powerful dojutsu are enough to bear the important role in Nangongzhi's plan. Looking at the opened wooden door, Uchiha Sasuke didn't come out. The altar lord standing behind Nangongzhi couldn't help but want to go in and take a look, but they were stopped by Nangongzhi. After a few years of cultivation, although the altar masters of the 5-element altars were almost all at the shadow tier, they were still different from Nangongzhi. At this moment, Nangongzhi could clearly feel that a kind of natural power began to gather in this room from all directions. If he had to describe why such a natural power appeared, Nangongzhi could only say that it was nature's praise for the appearance of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Finally, after a while, the turbulent natural energy fluctuations that were difficult to detect by people who weren't familiar with natural energy calmed down. A powerful aura came out of the room. The altar masters of 5 Elements Altar, who wanted to rush in to check on Sasuke's condition, also noticed this powerful aura. Almost in an instant, the roof of the room where Sasuke was sitting was directly broken, and the broken tiles and wooden blocks scattered directly in all directions. But at this moment, whether it was Nangongzhi or the other altar lords, they didn't care about the damage of the room, because at this moment, a huge purple figure directly rushed out of the room. The complete body was wrapped in Crow Tengu's armor, and the purple chakra flame was constantly burning on Susanoo's body. Such an indomitable giant was standing in front of everyone, and everyone could feel a huge pressure. Is this the power of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan? Looking at the people standing beside him who were trembling slightly, even the most powerful among them, Nangongzhi, felt very obvious fear in his heart at this moment. If this Susanoo really started to attack, then each of his attacks would be powerful enough to cut off everything in the world. Splitting mountains and splitting rocks was almost a matter of waving his hand. Sure enough, the power of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan was indeed very powerful, and this was only using Uchiha Fugaku's eyes. If Sasuke's eyes were Itachi Uchiha's eyes, what would the situation be like? Nangongzhi couldn't help but think, but what Nangongzhi didn't know was that since Uchiha Fugaku awakened Manjikyu Sharingan, he almost didn't use its power, so such an eye could almost be regarded as a brand new Manjikyu Sharingan that hasn't been consumed, while Itachi's Sharingan has been exhausted in battle. In fact, Uchiha Fugaku's eyes could give Uchiha Sasuke more powerful power. Chapter 583. The powerful Susanoo didn't last long, it only lasted for 3 or 4 minutes. Originally, the reason why Uchiha Sasuke used Susanoo at this time was actually to test the power of his new eyes. After all, Susanoo itself is an organic fusion of the power of 2 Manjikyu Sharingan. As long as he can figure out how much the power of Susanoo has increased, the remaining power of Dojutsu will be more or less clear. Now that he has figured it out, naturally, there is no need to continue to maintain such power. After all, this place belongs to Nangongja's Blood Cloak Pavilion, and the relationship between him and Sasuke is very good. There is really no need to show his muscles like this. After removing his Susanoo, Sasuke didn't come out of the room alone. Instead, he helped a person with gauze wrapped around his eyes out of the room. This person with gauze wrapped around his eyes is naturally the former patriarch of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Sasuke's biological father, Uchiha Fugaku. Uchiha Fugaku gave his eyes to his child Sasuke, and he himself transplanted a pair of ordinary eyes with the help of Blood Cloak Pavilion. Compared to Sharingan, ordinary eyes are not so adaptable, so now Uchiha Fugaku's transplanted eyes have not recovered well, and it will take some time to adapt. Nangong-sensei, helping Fugaku to walk in front of Nangongja, Sasuke bowed to Fugaku. Fugaku, who was supported by Sasuke to Nangongja, was more respectful than Sasuke. Although his eyes can't be used, as a powerful ninja, Fugaku can easily perceive Nangongja's position, and directly bowed to Nangongja and said, "Greetings, Your Excellency." Nangongja didn't hesitate when he saw Fugaku bowing to him. He strode to Fugaku's front and used his hand to support Fugaku's arm. Nangongja then said to Fugaku with a bit of shame and admiration, "Brother Fugaku, Brother Fugaku, Brother Fugaku. You don't have to be so polite, Mr. Fugaku. I should be the one bowing to you. This time, the Blood Garment Pavilion let your family down and made you make such a big sacrifice. This is what the Blood Garment Pavilion and I owe you. This is not something that can be erased with a few words of thanks. No matter what, our Blood Garment Pavilion will maintain the closest relationship with Sir Fugaku's family." Fugaku had always said that he wasn't looking forward to the revival of his family. He had even stayed in the Lion Clan space like a hermit all these years to accompany his family. But Nangongja knew that in Fugaku's heart, he still had the idea of reviving the Uchiha clan again. The bloodline of the Uchiha clan is very overbearing. Even if there is only a part of the Uchiha clan's bloodline, it is very likely to invade other bloodlines outside the Uchiha clan. Moreover, this kind of overbearing bloodline will continue to increase with the strength of the people who carry the bloodline of the Uchiha clan. As long as the Uchiha clan can once again stand firm in the shinobi world, it will not be difficult for them to spread their bloodline and revive the family. And after experiencing such a situation of the destruction of the Uchiha clan, the arrogance of the people who have always been in the Uchiha clan will certainly be reduced a lot. At least, it will not be as obvious and inflexible as it was in the Woodleaf village. And all of this needs to rely on the blood-robed pavilion, or rather, the blood-robed pavilion that is really standing firm in the shinobi world. So what Nangongja said now is actually a promise to Uchiha Fugaku. Since you can do so much for the blood-robed pavilion, then the blood-robed pavilion will naturally not treat you badly, even if you have done so much for your son. Thank you, Sama. This time, Fugaku finally didn't hide his inner feelings. He didn't say that he had already seen through the affairs of the world and wasn't willing to step into the mortal world anymore. Instead, he directly thanked Nangongja. Nodding to Fugaku, Nangongja then looked at Uchiha Sasuke, who was standing beside him. At this moment, Sasuke's eyes still maintained his eternal Mangekyo form, which was different from the previous appearance of a hexagram. Whether it was Fugaku's pinwheel or Sasuke's hexagram, they both appeared in Sasuke's eyes after a certain degree of deformation and overlap. Nangong's spiritual strength is very strong. Even if he directly looked at the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan like this, he didn't suffer too much from it. On the contrary, Sasuke was very surprised that Nangongja could be completely unaffected by his eyes. After all, his eyes can be said to be the ultimate evolution of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Even when he looked at Nangongja just now, Sasuke quietly used the charm eye ability of the Sharingan itself, but even so, Nangongja's eyes were still clear at this moment. The stronger he is, the more he can't see through this man. This was the case in the past, and it's the same now. Even if he has always maintained a growth rate that ordinary people can't reach, and has also obtained various opportunities, but Nangongja is still the same as when he was a child, steadily leaving him behind. Sasuke, this time it's hard for you. Nangongja pressed his hand on Sasuke's shoulder, looking at the child who he almost watched grow up with a little apologetically. I'm sorry, as an adult, I put such a heavy burden on you. But don't worry, I will face the wind and waves after with you. Although the ninja world is a pool of water in front of us, even so, as long as we are willing, we can take the long sword in our hands and open up a new world with the hot blood in our chests. At this moment, Nangongja's eyes were burning with a raging flame. Nangongja believes that he can make this ninja world a little different. A ninja world that only has ninjas is too monotonous. With one hand tightly holding the sword in his hand, Nangongja stretched out his other hand and grabbed Sasuke's palm. With this, he took Sasuke step by step towards the central square of the Blood Cloak Pavilion, where all the forces of the Blood Cloak Pavilion that were about to participate in the war were waiting. Chapter 584. Holding Sasuke's hand, Nangongja walked step by step to the front of the many Blood Cloak Pavilion disciples. Unlike last time, there was no high platform in the central square this time. Without the high and mighty distance, Nangongja was not so unreachable for the Blood Cloak Pavilion disciples at this moment. Instead, he was much closer to them. Many disciples involuntarily began to kneel when they saw Nangongja walking over. After all, Nangongja was the supreme leader of the Blood Cloak Pavilion. When they saw their supreme leader, many people were actually in awe and reverence. Although the elite disciples of the Blood Cloak Pavilion were quite strong, they were far inferior to Nangongja. He released his hand that was originally holding the catastrophe sword, opened his palm, and raised it toward the sky in the void. The few Blood Cloak Pavilion disciples who were about to kneel were immediately wrapped up by Nangongja's internal strength, and their bodies involuntarily stood up straight. With a smile, Nangongja looked at the Blood Cloak Pavilion disciples who were about to kneel because of the awe in their hearts. He did not say anything. Instead, he used his internal strength to amplify his voice so that it could be heard by all the disciples in the square. Disciples of the Blood Cloak Pavilion. No, it should be brothers and sisters. I am Nangongja, your chief, Nangongja. Nangongja's voice, which was amplified by his internal strength, became extremely deep and melodious. It was as if it rushed straight into everyone's ears and even into their minds. The people of the Blood Cloak Pavilion had a certain level of worship for Nangongja. When they could clearly hear Nangongja's words, they all cheered. Chief! 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 Listening to the passionate cheers of the Blood Cloak Pavilion disciples, Nangongja did not release his domain, which was beyond common sense, to suppress the voices of these disciples like before. Instead, he allowed them to shout his name loudly. The voices of 10 people were enough to shock people, the voices of 100 people were enough to scare people away, and the voices of 1,000 people were enough to scatter the clouds in the sky. When nearly 1,000 people in the square shouted loudly, it was unknown whether it was an illusion or not, but the floating clouds in the sky seemed to have become thinner. Finally, after a few minutes, the disciples of the Blood Cloak Pavilion completely expressed their feelings through shouting, and the huge square finally regained some peace. When Nangongzhi saw that everyone had finished expressing their emotions, he stood in the crowd and said, "I know that many of you admire and even fear me. Fear. After all, anyone with strength in this world is worthy of respect. This is the truest and most irrefutable truth in this world." Such an idea has almost become the truth recognized by everyone, but I don't think such a so-called truth is right. When a world only has respect for the strong, but has lost sympathy for the weak, such a world is a deformed world. And isn't the current ninja world such a world? Strong ninja villages bully weak ninja villages, strong countries exploit weak countries, strong ninjas bully weak civilians, countries, ninja villages. Ninjas, out of their own selfish interests, don't care about the life and death of the weak. In recent decades, 3 shinobi world wars have broken out, and now the 4th shinobi world war is about to break out. Although the current strength of our Bloodcloak Pavilion is not bad, after all, we are just an organization in the ninja world. Even in terms of strength and heritage, we are much worse than the 5 great ninja villages that have always occupied the leading position in the ninja world. But we are different from these ninjas who only know how to deceive. We internal strength cultivators pay attention to righteousness. Since we want to fight, we will fight fair and square. Since we want to fight, we have to fight openly. Since we want to change the world, we have to use the strongest posture to let everyone see our attitude. This time, our action is risky. Even I don't know how successful our action is. But I am not afraid, and I believe that you are not afraid either. For the current world, we have squeezed too much dissatisfaction. Since we are dissatisfied, we have to let others know how powerful our dissatisfaction is. In this battle, I will stand in front of each of you. If we really want to shed blood, then let me shed blood first. If we want to leave scars on our bodies, then let me get hurt first. If we really want to risk our lives, then let me sacrifice my life first. Letting go of Sasuke's hand, Nangongzhi began to take a step forward with every sentence. When Nangongzhi said this, Nangongzhi was actually standing in the center of the square. He slowly pulled out the Heavenly Calamity Sword in his hand, and a sharp sword light was released from the Heavenly Calamity Sword. Gradually, the sword light condensed into sword chi, and the black Heavenly Calamity Sword seemed to shine brightly under the contrast of the sword chi. In this battle, my Bloodcloak Pavilion may not be able to win the final victory. But I can tell you this. Our Bloodcloak Pavilion will definitely become the most dazzling existence in the 4th Shinobi World War, an existence that no one can ignore. Compared to chakra, internal strength is indeed a little bit lacking, but as long as we can show our strength in the 4th Shinobi World War, it is equivalent to planting the most vigorous seed for the development of internal strength. We are not fighting for the resentment of the past, not for the status of the present, we are fighting for the future that we look forward to. There is nothing more fascinating than the future, because the future represents hope and all kinds of possibilities. As long as you are dissatisfied with the reality, then you will definitely yearn for the future. For the future, fight bloody battles. For the future, fight bloody battles. Nangongzhi's words were very true, and not so impassioned. Just like that, he directly told everyone about the dangers of this battle, and also told everyone about the possible sacrifices they might have to make. It was precisely because it was true that it was more convincing. Everyone saw the danger, but at the same time, they also saw the hope in the danger. Chapter 585. When the 5 great shinobi villages and the Blood Cloak Pavilion were in full swing, they didn't know when the war would break out, but the leader of Akatsuki, Uchiha Obito, along with Kabuto and Black Zetsu, appeared outside the rain country. Towering stone peaks, pure white and fluffy clouds, all of this is very different from the natural environment of the rain country. It only belongs to one country in the shinobi world, the lightning country. After making up their mind not to confront the 5 great shinobi villages, Uchiha Obito and Black Zetsu have been discussing which place to attack first. After all, Akatsuki is different from the 5 great shinobi villages. After all, the allied shinobi forces formed by the 5 great shinobi villages don't belong to the same force, and when they carry out personnel transfer, it will cause a lot of movement. As long as Akatsuki wants to investigate, they can completely know the actions of the 5 great shinobi villages. Akatsuki itself is an organization hidden in the dark. As long as it can be carried out without being seen by others, Akatsuki will not put such actions on the surface. Now, the main forces of the Akatsuki against the allied forces of the 5 great ninja villages are 100,000 White Zetsu clones and 100,000 Edo Tensei clones. These 2 clones are very good at hiding their whereabouts and can directly integrate into the earth and trees. And the Edo Tensei itself is almost a psychic existence. As long as a short preparation time, they can directly start the battle. There are many targets that Akatsuki can attack. For example, the Land of Iron, which has lost its leader, and the Land of Wind, Sunagakure, which is relatively weak among the 5 great shinobi villages. These 2 targets can actually be regarded as the most suitable choice. To be able to create the greatest value with the least cost, can be regarded as very cost-effective. But at this moment, Uchiha Obito still looked at the Land of Lightning Kyumo Shinobu, which is not weak among the 5 great shinobi villages. In fact, Obito also has his own thoughts about biting off such a hard bone first. The moment Kisame died, the seal that symbolized his life left in Akatsuki directly collapsed. But because of the seal created with the power of 6 paths, Uchiha Obito obtained the fragmented and partial memories of Kisame. Although the memory was intermittent, it clearly revealed a piece of information. 9 Tails Column Force, Vortex Naruto, and 8 Tails Column Force, Killer Bee are currently in Kyumo Shinobu Village in the Lightning Country. Uchiha Obito's biggest goal was not to defeat the allied ninja army composed of the 5 great ninja villages, but to collect the power of the Hachibi and 9 Tails that he hasn't obtained yet, to resurrect the Jubi and make himself the column force of the Jubi. With the help of the Jubi's huge power, he projected the power of the Manjikyu Sharingan onto the moon, making the whole world fall into the infinite Tsukuyomi. Since his biggest goal was the Lightning Country, why didn't he come here? Taking a step back, even if there is a mistake in the memory fragment of Kisame, and Vortex Naruto is not in Kyumo Shinobu Village at the moment, once he really occupies Kyumo Shinobu Village, then he can use the whole Kyumo Shinobu Village as bait to lure the Hachibi Column Force, and even 9 Tails Column Force and Vortex Naruto may also jump into the trap with him. With Killer Bee and Vortex Naruto's reckless and impulsive behavior, Uchiha Obito, who has deliberately studied these 2 people, is at least 70% sure that he can make these 2 impulsive Column Force come to him, and he can easily defeat them with the power of Gedomazo. Moreover, although the resources of the Lightning Country are not very outstanding among the 5 major countries, but the Lightning Country has the most dangerous terrain among the 5 major countries. Although it is nothing for the Akatsuki's army of 100,000 White Zetsu, but for the ninjas of the allied ninja army of the 5 major countries, such an environment has a great restrictive ability. He could advance to attack, retreat to defend, a natural stronghold spirit. Are you ready? Obito turned his head and slowly looked at Black Zetsu and Kabuto standing on both sides behind him. Black Zetsu controls the army of 100,000 White Zetsu, and Kabuto controls the army of Edo Tensei. One has the advantage in numbers, and the other has the advantage in individual strength. What's more, Kabuto and Black Zetsu don't like each other, and a certain degree of jealousy between their subordinates is actually a good way to improve the combat power of the forces. Only through competition would a person be able to unleash a greater power. When Black Zetsu heard Obito's question, he didn't say anything, but nodded his head. Apparently he was ready to attack. Kabuto, who was standing on the other side, showed a completely different kind of activity from Black Zetsu. His eyes flashed with a bit of eagerness. Sama, I have prepared a big gift for the 4th Raikage of Kyumo Shinobu Village. I believe that he will be very surprised when the time comes. Looking at Kabuto's sly expression, Uchiha Obito knew that Kabuto must be planning something. But what's the matter? After all, it's his enemy who will suffer, and the more his enemy suffers, the happier he will be. Very good. After taking a deep look at Black Zetsu and Kabuto, Obito's eyes, which were composed of 3 Tomo Sharingan and Rinnegan behind the mask, flashed with a glimmer of light. His dream is about to be achieved. At this moment, Uchiha Obito couldn't help but feel a little excited, but no matter how excited he was, Obito forced himself to suppress his emotions, forcing himself to be rational and calm down. Black Zetsu now control the White Zetsu army to sneak into Kumo Shinobu village. After the transformation, the 100,000 White Zetsu army began to disperse into Kumo Shinobu village, using spore technique to control the civilians and ninjas of Kumo Shinobu village. I'll give you 6 hours, report to me after you're done. In order to form his ideal Tsukuyomi world, he feels that he can't kill unscrupulously. Every ninja and civilian with independent will is an important material for Tsukuyomi world. The more such material is integrated into Tsukuyomi world, the more real and fuller Tsukuyomi world can become. Obito doesn't want his Rin to live in such an incomplete world, and by extracting any memories of Rin in the mind of the material, it is equivalent to recreating Rin's soul. What Obito wants is not only for Rin to appear in front of him again. What Obito wanted was to appear in front of him, the living, sometimes unruly, sometimes gentle Harano Rin that he deeply loved. Chapter 586. The Ninja Village is a violent organization. No matter how much so-called justice is used to modify their behavior, in the end, the Ninja Village is a mercenary organization that accepts money, threats, and even directly takes the lives of those who stand on their opposite side. Kumo Shinobu Village is one of the 5 great ninja villages. Although its strength surpasses the general ninja village, in essence, Kumo Shinobu Village is also such an organization. At this moment, it's midnight, when everyone is sleepy. Even the ninja of Kumo Shinobu Village who has received complete ninja training, although he is strong, his body is still instinctively full of fatigue. Standing on the temporary watchtower that was built because of the upcoming war, a ninja of the Cloud Village looked at the dark space in front of him and almost couldn't help but yawn, and with the yawn, his eyes were covered with a thin layer of mist because of tiredness. This ninja of the Cloud Village has just been promoted to Chunin. This year, he just led an ordinary ninja team. Because of his strength and the qualifications of his students, this team has been performing some C-level and even D-level tasks since its establishment. It's already late at night, and his 3 students can't bear the fatigue of their bodies and doze off a little at the foot of the watchtower. And this Chunin himself is a very gentle and even slightly timid person. When he saw his students dozing off during the task, he didn't even lose his temper. This group of kids is really lazy. Today's task is really a bit hard. Next time I must teach these kids how to be a qualified ninja. Although there seems to be a bit of blame in his words, the eyes of this Chunin are extremely soft. It seems that there is a story behind it. Just when this Chunin was still looking at his team of young children, a familiar and strange smell passed to his nose. The slightly sweet and fishy smell was so pungent and fresh. This smell was very familiar to the Chunin, because this smell was the smell of blood. It was the smell of fresh blood that just flowed out of a human body. Not good. Perceiving that things are not good, the Chunin immediately walked towards his 3 students, ready to wake them up and then ring the alarm bell on the watchtower. But when he was only a few centimeters away from his students, a white figure suddenly rushed out from the floor of the watchtower. The floor of the watchtower is not made of mud but wood. What kind of escape technique can make people integrate into such a material? The Chunin doesn't know, and at this moment, he doesn't have time to figure out what is going on. The white figure directly pressed his palm on Kumo Chunin's neck at a speed that Kumo Chunin couldn't keep up with. Feeling a chill invading his neck, Kumo Chunin could only lose his strength and fell to the ground softly. The last thing the Chunin saw was a naked white figure with a strange face slowly walking towards his 3 disciples. Kumo Chunin wanted to move his body so that he could stand in front of his disciples to protect these young children. But he can't move at all, and the Chunin can clearly feel that the part of his neck that was just touched by this white figure has begun to take root and germinate at this moment. Finally, although the Chunin of the cloud used all kinds of methods to keep his mind awake, it was still inevitable that he fell into a deep sleep. What happened here is not an exception, it happened in every corner of the Kyumo Shinobu village. The defensive forces of the Cloud Village are getting thinner and thinner under the layers of white Zetsu. After the outer defense circle was nibbled away, the white Zetsu troops also encountered the weakest and densest part of the Cloud Village, the civilian area. Like harvesting, the civilians and ninjas of the Cloud Village lost their fighting ability and even consciousness under the sudden attack of the white Zetsu. Many Jonins were even defeated by the attack of the white Zetsu clone, whose strength was greatly enhanced. Although this kind of fighting method is very effective, it is not a long-term solution. After all, the Cloud Village is one of the 5 great ninja villages of the ninja world. It is impossible for the Cloud Village to be completely wiped out. Even the reason why the Cloud Village hasn't reacted yet is because the white Zetsu didn't kill them, so there wasn't too much bloody smell. If the white Zetsu didn't use Spore Jutsu to control the Cloud Village and directly killed them, they would have been discovered by the Cloud Village's powerhouses. But even if they didn't kill anyone, the Cloud Village is still strong. How dare you? Who dares to ignore the majesty of the Cloud Village and invade our ninja village? The rough and majestic voice of the 4th Raikage spread directly in all directions, and his figure quickly appeared on the roof of the Raikage building in the Cloud Village. The Raiton chakra turned into chakra armor and attached to the body of the Raikage. At this moment, the Raikage was like the god of thunder, full of majesty that ordinary people can't reach. It seems that the Raikage's voice alarmed the people in the Cloud Village who originally turned off their lights, lit their candles, and the originally quiet Cloud Village became brightly lit. The reason why the White Zetsu army could create such a rare result before was mainly because of his magical jutsu and transformation jutsu. But now, under the watchful eyes of so many people, even if his transformation jutsu and escape jutsu are magical, what can he do? The 100,000 White Zetsu army immediately began to retreat when they realized that they had been exposed, and Black Zetsu, who was standing beside Uchiha Obito, also immediately reported to Obito. Under the attack of the White Zetsu army, at least 1/3 of the ninjas and at least 2/3 of the civilians in the Kyumo Shinobu village have been controlled. When Obito heard the results of the White Zetsu army, his eyes flashed with a hint of understanding. Obito didn't expect to directly attack the Cloud Village with only the White Zetsu army. Now that the Cloud Village's combat power has been reduced by 1/3 with almost no loss on his side, it can be regarded as a remarkable result. Chapter 587. Very good. Hearing Black Zetsu's report, Uchiha Obito looked at Kabuto who was standing behind him. Now it's your turn to play, are you ready? Hearing Obito's question, Yakushi's eyes flashed with a glimmer of light. His slightly retro glasses also reflected a ray of light. Of course, I believe that the Cloud Village will like this gift I prepared for them very much. Kabuto made 4 hand seals one after another, and the chakra on Kabuto's body also surged quickly with the hand seals. When he felt that his chakra had condensed to a certain point, Kabuto put his palms together, squatted down, and pressed his palms on the ground. Boom! With the explosion of smoke, black runes spread out from Kabuto's palms. The runes seemed to have a life of their own and condensed into 3 formations on the ground, and at the moment when the formations were formed, 3 coffins slowly floated from the ground. In the middle of the coffins, there were characters that represented the identity of the reincarnated person: gold, silver, and lightning. Before Kabuto joined the Akatsuki, he had been using his Sage Mode body to sneak into various huge ninja villages to steal the DNA samples of the strong people who had passed away. The Cloud Village has always been outstanding in the ninja world, so naturally, there was no way to avoid the presence of Kabuto. Kabuto also obtained 3 DNA samples from the Cloud Village that he was very satisfied with. The strongest contradiction of the Cloud Village, the two lights of the Cloud Village. The three people who left their own thick ink in the history of the Cloud Village, now is the time for you to open your eyes again. As Kabuto's voice fell, the lids of the three coffins were opened one after another, revealing the three strong people hidden in them: Cloud Ninja Ginkaku, Cloud Ninja Ginkaku, and Cloud Ninja Sandame Reikage AI. Oh! This is really the fresh air I haven't breathed in for a long time. Unlike the yellow spring, the air here is so sweet. Ginkaku was the first to recover his consciousness. He stepped out of the coffin and took a deep breath of the air with greed and fascination. With a cruel smile on his face, he said, "Such a wonderful thing, I can't help but want to destroy it all." Shaking his slightly dark golden hair, Ginkaku's face, which was very similar to Naruto's, was full of dangerous aura. Ha ha ha. Big Brother is right, the more beautiful something is, the more wonderful it is to destroy it. Behind Ginkaku, a voice that was very similar to Ginkaku's voice sounded. However, unlike Gold Horn's voice, which was filled with violence, Silver Horn's voice sounded more sinister and cunning. At this moment, Ginkaku and Ginkaku stood together very tacitly, searching for the remnant of chakra in their bodies that was used to awaken them. Both of them turned their eyes to Kabuto, who was standing on the side with his whole body covered in a loose robe. "Are you the one who summoned us from the Yellow Springs?" Ginkaku looked at Kabuto with a bit of fierceness in his eyes, as if he didn't like the person who brought him back to the world. Ginkaku and Ginkaku were rebellious people. When they were alive, they even rebelled because they were dissatisfied with the end of the war in the Thunder and Fire Alliance. Although the rebellion was quelled, the Woodleaf Village's second Hokage and Cloud Village's second Hokage were seriously injured because of them. It can be said that the rebellion of Ginkaku and Ginkaku brought the curtain to the end of the two eras of Cloud Village and Woodleaf Village. The second Reikage AI, the founder of the Cloud Village in its heyday, and the second Hokage Senju Tobarama of Konoha, the second Hokage Senju Tobarama of Konoha, were defeated by him at the same time. No matter what kind of method was used, Jinjiao and Yinjiao were not simple people. And the more troublesome they were, the more they didn't want to be controlled by others. The two of them were able to be swallowed by the nine-tailed beast, but they were able to forcefully cause the nine-tailed beast to spit them out. Naturally, it was not difficult to imagine how difficult and unruly these two people were. Kabuto looked at Ginkaku and Ginkaku, who were staring at him, and felt the obvious murderous intent from them. In fact, he couldn't help but feel nervous. After all, in terms of fighting ability, he was indeed not as strong as Ginkaku and Ginkaku, who had been in the ninja world for many years. But Uchiha, Obito, and Black Zetsu, who were standing next to him, didn't seem to want to make a move at all. It seemed that they wanted to see how he was going to solve this problem. Although he was not as strong as Ginkaku and Ginkaku in terms of strength, their lives were in his hands. Suddenly, Kabuto formed a seal in his hands, and the chakra sealed in Ginkaku and Ginkaku's bodies by Kabuto was activated. He directly transferred his chakra to the key nodes in the Edo Tensei's body, and almost instantly, Ginkaku and Ginkaku's bodies were stopped. "You bastard!" Seeing that his body was suddenly unable to move, Ginkaku immediately glared at Kabuto, and even his body was trembling slightly because of the struggle. Ginkaku, who was standing next to Ginkaku, didn't look so excited, but the burning anger in his eyes was still so obvious. "Don't worry, you two. I didn't summon you two to become emotionless tools. Otherwise, I would have already controlled your consciousness." Kabuto walked slowly toward the direction where Ginkaku and Ginkaku were controlled. He came to Ginkaku's side and gently put his hand on his shoulder. A large amount of chakra poured into Ginkaku's body, supplying the chakra that was controlling him. Ginkaku's body, which was still trembling slightly, had completely stabilized at this moment. You two may not know this, but the ninja world now is different from the ninja world of your time. A ninja war that is far beyond the 5 major powers is happening. I know the personalities of the two of you very well. War, bloodshed, killing, and destruction are the things that the two of you love the most. Now, I am giving you a chance. A chance to fully release your instincts. Chapter 588. In fact, Jin Jiao and Silver Jiao were not particularly smart people. Otherwise, the rebellion they launched during the Lightning Fire Alliance wouldn't have been so easily quelled. As a matter of fact, when Medicine Master Bai was bewitching Gold Horn and Silver Horn with his excellent language skills, both of them were already tempted by his offer. Language bewitchment itself is to carefully observe the other party's expression, study the other party's character and attitude in detail, and then use a very clever method to guide the other party's thinking, twisting the other party's thinking to the direction you want. Kabuto didn't bewitch Jin Jiao and Silver Jiao. Instead, he gave them a very brief explanation of the current situation of the ninja world. After all, they have been in the ninja world for many years. Even if they heard such a brief information, they still had a rough idea of the current situation. In other words, the Akatsuki you mentioned has now become the public enemy of the ninja world. The 5 great ninja villages have directly formed a ninja coalition to fight with you. Do you want to use such a war to determine the future of the ninja world? Silver Jiao, who had been standing behind Jin Jiao, suddenly asked Kabuto. Indeed, and because the two of you are Edo Tensei, as long as your chakra and body are not released from the Edo Tensei, you will not receive any fatal damage. Both of you are heroes of the ninja world. Now that you have such a body and such a battlefield, I don't think you want to miss it, right? If you want to really control a person and make them willing to be your weapon, the most important thing is to cater to their interests. Hide all your requirements, and instead make requests from the other party's position, and then tactfully achieve all your goals. The first target of our Akatsuki is the ninja village you two are most familiar with, Cloud Village. Cloud Village, the ninja village where Jin Jiao and Silver Jiao were born. For the place where they lived and grew up, everyone will have a different feeling in their heart, even peerless villains like Jin Jiao and Silver Jiao. In fact, from the bottom of their hearts, Gold Horn and Silver Horn very much hope that all their actions in the past can be supported by their own ninja village. After all, when the Thunder and Fire Alliance was formed, the cloud-hidden village of the Land of Lightning was not completely suppressed by the Woodleaf village of the Land of Fire. Although it was undeniable that the two brothers were addicted to the thrill of fighting, they had also fought for the Cloud Village for so many years and created so many meritorious deeds. However, in the end, their demands were undeniably rejected. That was why Gold Horn and Silver Horn launched the rebellion that ended an era. The more you love something, the more you hate it when it betrays you. For the Cloud-Hidden Village, the resentment in Gold Horn and Silver Horn's hearts was far more than their affection and love. Let go of the restriction. My brother and I have already made our decision. Gold Horn and Silver Horn exchanged glances, then Gold Horn said slowly to Medicine Master Pocket. Jin Jiao's voice didn't sound as excited as before. Instead, it sounded calm. Medicine Master Pocket was not worried that Gold Horn and Silver Horn would go back on their words. After all, he was so close to them. As long as he wanted to stop their actions, it would only take a thought. There was no need to be so careful. What do we need to do? Silver Horn moved his body, which was slightly stiff because he was forcibly controlled just now, and then asked Medicine Master Pocket. I need you to capture the Hachibi column force of the Cloud-Hidden Village when we cooperate with the Sandame Reikage summoned by the Edo Tensei to contain the high-end combat power of the Cloud-Hidden Village. Medicine Master Pocket didn't say too many useless words to Gold Horn and Silver Horn. Instead, he directly told them about his plan. Although there were many experts in the Cloud-Hidden Village, there were not many people who had the strength of a Kage. The fourth Reikage AI was one, the Hachibi column force was another, and some of the more powerful jonins were more difficult to deal with. On their side, they had Uchiha Obito, who was far stronger than a Kage, and Black Zetsu, who was definitely comparable to a Kage, although he deliberately hid his strength. Controlling the fourth Raikage's father, Sandaime Raikage, a powerful ninja who also inherited the name A, could definitely greatly affect the fourth Raikage's mind. Then, Gold Horn and Silver Horn would catch the Hachibi column force by surprise. It was indeed a good plan with high operability. After waking up Sandaime Raikage in the coffin, Sandaime Raikage slowly opened his eyes, which had turned black because of the Edo Tensei. The moment he opened his eyes, Sandaime Raikage finally looked around and began to observe the people standing around him. Sandaime Raikage didn't know the masked Obito, the weird-looking Black Zetsu, and Medicine Master Pocket, who was wearing glasses and covered in a robe, but Sandaime Raikage knew Gold Horn and Silver Horn. "You two bastards!" The moment he saw Gold Horn and Silver Horn, Sandaime Raikage's body directly wrapped the powerful Raiton chakra. The powerful chakra even condensed a layer of chakra armor on Sandaime Raikage's body, looking very powerful and mighty. What a hot-tempered guy! Looking at Sandaime Raikage, who had completely entered the battle state, Medicine Master Pocket's eyes flashed with a trace of impatience. Medicine Master Pocket was very clear about the difference between Sandaime Raikage, Gold Horn, and Silver Horn. No matter how much he tried to persuade Sandaime Raikage to attack his ninja village. Therefore, Medicine Master Pocket directly unleashed all the chakra he had sealed in Sandaime Raikage's body, directly blocking all the meridians in Sandaime Raikage's body. Sandaime Raikage's huge chakra was directly blocked in his meridians. Not only did the chakra armor on his body disappear in an instant, but his body also directly lost control because of the blocked meridians, and directly fell to the ground softly. Medicine Master Pocket took out a kunai with a talisman hanging on it from his bosom, slowly walked to Sandaime Raikage's side, and directly put this kunai into the head of Sandaime Raikage's filthy earth reincarnation body. Although maintaining your consciousness will allow you to unleash greater strength, your greatest use right now is not in combat. It's better to completely control you, and then it's more cost-effective. After saying that, Medicine Master Pocket casually glanced at Gold Horn and Silver Horn, who were standing at the side, with a threatening look. Chapter 589. Although Jin Jiao and Silver Jiao believed that under certain circumstances, they could indeed unleash the strength of a Kage ninja, but they also knew that when it comes to comprehensive strength, in fact, both of them were only stronger than an elite Jonin, but there was a certain gap between them and a Kage ninja. But now, in front of them, Sandaime Raikage, who was their junior but inherited the title of the strongest ninja in the Cloud Village, was simply controlled by Kabuto at this moment, and a talisman was implanted in his head. If both of them were forcibly controlled by Medicine Master Pocket because of their incompetence, and were turned into marionettes under his control, it would be the most unacceptable thing for people like Gold Horn and Silver Horn. Then, I'll leave it to the two of you to complete the task that I've assigned to you. Looking at Jin Jiao and Silver Jiao, Kabuto was keenly aware of the slight fear in their eyes, and his heart was filled with a sense of satisfaction. Even if you were a powerful ninja in your life, so what? In the end, you will still become a toy in my hands. Such a feeling made Kabuto, who didn't have a clear understanding of himself, feel a great sense of satisfaction. When Jin Jiao and Silver Jiao heard Kabuto's words, although they didn't speak, they still nodded, apparently expressing their willingness to cooperate with Kabuto. When he saw Gold Horn and Silver Horn, who were so arrogant and unruly, acting like two harmless little lambs in front of him, Alchemist Pocket couldn't help but feel a little smug. Turning around, Kabuto glanced at Black Zetsu with his eyes very proudly, and then said to Obito very respectfully, "Sama. Everything is ready, we can now attack the Cloud Village." Looking at Kabuto in front of him, Obito slowly nodded his head. "In that case, let's set off." In the Cloud Village, the fourth Raikage AI was sitting at his desk with a very dignified expression. Just now, he noticed the abnormality in the ninja village, but when he came out, the source of the abnormality suddenly disappeared. After that, the fourth Reikage AI immediately mobilized all the forces he could mobilize to search the Cloud Village, trying to find the source of the change. However, before they could find the source of the abnormality, bad news came one after another. 1/3 of the ninjas in the Cloud Village fell asleep for unknown reasons, and nearly 2/3 of the civilians were also in a coma for unknown reasons. This number has been increasing with the passage of time. In order to treat these ninjas and civilians, the Cloud Village Hospital has been overloaded at this moment, and even occupied a large number of public facilities in the Cloud Village because of the lack of beds and other reasons. If it's just occupying public facilities and using human resources, it won't be difficult for the fourth Reikage. What worried the Reikage the most was that after such a large number of people fell into a deep sleep, the people in the Cloud Village would become restless. Disasters are easily averted, but it is difficult for people to be at peace. Reikage-sama. Hope, who has always been the Reikage's right-hand man, walked into the Reikage's office and saluted respectfully. "So it's she? I've heard enough bad news today, don't let me hear more bad news." In front of she, the Reikage didn't try to hide the tiredness in his eyes. After all, if it was any other faction's leader, he wouldn't be able to solve the problem of having so many people in his faction fall into a deep sleep for no reason. And now it's still an important period before the war, and AI really doesn't want people to be restless. The news that I brought should be both good news and bad news to a greater extent, right? Hope said to Reikage with a smile on her face. She seemed to be thinking about the news she brought with her, and said to Reikage, "Oh. That's a bit interesting." Hearing she, who had always been very calm, say such words at this moment, AI knew that the news she brought to him must be something he couldn't accept. Bai-sama came back, and also brought the 9 tails. Column Force has completely controlled the 9 tails in his body, and at this moment, he has returned to the Woodleaf Village accompanied by the Woodleaf Elite Jonin Mike Guy. However, while helping the Kyubi Jinchuriki Uzumaki Naruto control the tailed beasts in his body, Bai-sama and Uzumaki Naruto discovered that Kisame was faking his death and had been hiding in the flesh of the shinobi shark. After that, Kisame was defeated by the Woodleaf Elite Jonin Mike Guy, who was responsible for supporting Uzumaki Naruto. But after all, Kisame has been lurking in the flesh of the ninja shark for quite a long time, and we can't guarantee that Kisame didn't send a message to the Akatsuki organization during this period of time, so we still have to be vigilant against any possible attack that the Akatsuki organization may launch against the Cloud Village. Speaking of attack, the strangest thing that happened in the Cloud Village is that a large number of ninjas and villagers fell into a coma that is difficult to treat. If we really make a bold guess, can we think that this strange event is actually the prelude of the Akatsuki organization's attack on the Cloud Village? For a long time, our thinking has been limited to the previous Shinobi World Wars, but we have ignored the fact that the Akatsuki organization is not the same as the 5 great shinobi villages. Even the Rain Country is actually just a shelter that the Akatsuki organization can give up. If the Akatsuki organization really launched an attack on our Cloud Village, and even in the end, directly took over the Cloud Village as their new base of operations, we... As he spoke, Lian Shi's expression also became unfriendly. At the beginning, Hope actually just wanted to report the news of Killer Bee's return and whereabouts to Reikage, but as Hope began to speak, his mind was actually constantly analyzing all the things that happened at this stage. Originally, the mixed information in Hope's mouth had completely turned into a worry that could lead to the destruction of the Cloud Hidden Village. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.